All right, hello people. Welcome back to this is episode 4, I believe. Right, Matt?
That
This is
is
episode
right. For
4?
those keeping
We
track, we haven't lost count yet.
yeah. We did not go the way of Pizza and Go or Videotech and turn into a pizza store, like you
I
said,
mean,
pizza
Pizza and
shop.
Go did. Yeah, that's true. Pizza and Go, of course, way out of business now too.
Oh yeah.
Videotech certainly had a longer run in that spot, although some would argue Pizza and Go's run may have been more iconic given the talent that they had come through that place.
Yeah, I don't think we had any friends that worked at Videotech, did we?
No, no,
Did you
but it
know
was a
anybody there?
dream.
Okay, yeah.
It was a dream job of mine.
Dude, I always wanted to work at a video store. I never did though.
I know, same here. I never worked at a theater. Never. I was always like, oh, what a dream job. It's like I probably couldn't have even stayed up late at night, stayed up late enough to work at a theater like at any point in my life.
I was always so jealous because we've talked about him before on the show, but my buddy Burton, who I lived with for a few years when we
Yeah,
first moved to Madison, we both applied to work at Blockbuster at the same time, and he got the job and I did not.
not blockbuster material.
Yeah, no, I guess I didn't have enough knowledge.
I don't know. I that is like wild. One does have to wonder, like, what part of the interview do you think you bombed?
Oh, I didn't even get an interview. I applied.
Oh,
It might have been because, so when I moved, I was only 17, so that might have been part of
oh,
it.
yeah, that could be. Yeah,
I didn't even think about that until just
well,
now, actually. But
yeah. They
yeah, with
wouldn't even
having like
interview you.
rated R movies and whatnot, that might have been
They
part of it.
they got your application and they were like, no thanks, straight in the shredder.
But no, so I ended up working at a grocery store, and I also applied to, I think it was a family video that was like a few miles down the road,
Oh
and they
yeah,
actually called me back though, like a few months later, and I was like, this is like 3 months later. I already have a job now, so I just didn't take it. But
you weren't tempted to leave and
I
go to
should
family
have.
video.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, thinking about it now, I definitely should have. But
I mean, the employee perks alone, I feel like would have been worth it.
yeah,
I don't know if they
well,
were cutting deals for physical media, but
yeah. At the time, I didn't have a car though, and that would have meant that I would have had to walk like an extra mile in the snow. So
one thing that I don't fully know is like at a certain point, and we've talked about it, they started having, the sales when their movies were done where you could just purchase the movies. But I don't always remember that being a thing at video rental stores. And I do wonder what did they do back in the day? Uh,
yeah, I don't know.
One of life's great mysteries. So I was trying to. It is kind of wild doing the show like every 2 weeks because anymore I am like piling in like a ton of movie watching in
Mhm.
between the times that we talk. Like I'm just looking at. I've logged like I don't know 12 movies since the last time we did the show, but none of them are the ones that you did for the show today.
I know. Well, yeah, that's the thing too. Yeah, because like there's tons of movies that I haven't seen that I just want to knock off my list, but they have
Right.
nothing to do with the show. And then
Absolutely.
I'm also finding myself like watching these movies for the show, like in the first few days after we record, and then I'm like, well, I got to rewatch it now because I forgot what happened because I watched 15 other movies.
Yeah, I know. I could have stood to probably rewatch Demons 1 because it is like at a certain point hard to remember everything, like every detail of that movie.
Yeah.
But I think we'll have enough content to get through it. So I guess of note, I'm still like frantically trying to make my way through movies to do a best of the year list for 24. Out of a 10 slot list, I think I have 6 movies on it. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to make some decisions about what rounds out the rest of the list. But I did see Lindsay really wanted to see A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie. So
hmm
we did see that. Liked it, didn't love it. Probably not going to be on my top 10 of the year. But I also, this is, I don't know what's going on. This will come up again for me a little bit later in this episode. But in short succession, I've watched like 3 movies that featured bodybuilders, which kind of freaks me out. But like one is Love Lies Bleeding, which I tried to watch last night. I unfortunately haven't logged it yet because I fell asleep like at a certain point and then woke back up. So I missed a chunk of it and I'm going to have to go back to watch. But I felt myself being a little underwhelmed by it. I thought it would be a surefire like top 10 for me. And I was
Yeah.
kind of like feeling like, yeah, I don't know if this is really fully hitting for me.
Yeah, I feel like that movie's already kind of forgotten about.
Did
I
you
did
watch
order
it?
that. Yeah, I saw it in the theater, and I actually
Okay.
bought the Blu-ray. Ordered it from A24's website, but I haven't watched it again since. I
It
do
kind of
remember liking it though.
Yeah, it definitely has like a Nicholas Winding Refn feel to it, but it just I don't know. Keep getting like further and further into it, and I'm like, I'm not quite, you know, feeling like this is 100% for me. Like
Yeah.
it just wasn't like clicking on the level I was expecting to. But I'm gonna give it another go before I log it for the year. So
Did you
hilariously,
say
I'll
you
show back
missed?
up and be like, "This is my eighth favorite movie of the year."
Did you say you missed the end of it? Because it gets kind of weird at the end of it. There's like
I
some,
woke back up for the end, so I did see that, which I wasn't expecting that
yeah,
part.
and it's not. From what I remember, it's not really explained.
No, it's Super Shredder
Yeah.
gets two
Yeah.
canisters of that green ooze dumped on her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Did you know that movie is? I forget the name of the director, but it's also directed by the person who did Saint Maud. Did you know that?
no, but I haven't seen Saint Maud. So
Oh, okay, never mind. I thought I remember hearing you and Zach talk about that in your old show.
he may have. I don't remember it. Is it this 2019 directed by Rose Glass?
That's who it is, Rose Glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll add that to my list. I did not. That movie managed to escape me in
Oh, okay.
2019, so I just popped it on the old watch list.
Okay. It's
So
pretty
thank
good.
you. Yeah. One more thing of note for me, and it's one that I don't know. I always feel like I want to give these movies a chance, even though people hate them. Like it's the, and I'll get to it, but a lot of buildup for this. A director with a lot of acclaim, who over history has kind of been famous for these attempts at comebacks, kind of running things into the ground and then building it back up. And this year's version of that was Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. Have you seen this?
No, I heard it was another like 4 hour epic, so I obviously wasn't able to make it to the theater for that. It might be out on VOD now though, but I
Yeah,
just
it's
haven't
not
watched it.
that it's not that long. I watched it on a plane into into I started watching it on my flight down and then finished watching it on my flight back.
Oh,
Um,
really? How long
but
is it? Do you remember? Is it like two
it's
hours
less than
ish?
4 hours. I don't think it's as long as The Brutalist. I think
Oh,
it's more
okay.
like 3 hours. But
Okay. I don't know what I'm
um,
talking about. Don't listen to me.
no, I mean it is a long movie, but um, it sort of felt to me, and I know this is a movie that you like, but I felt like Southland Tales, where very like this very ambitious idea. He's has a lot to say. Um, I think people would probably say that there's some version of a prescient vibe to it. Although I think the original idea for it came to him in the 80s. It's basically like the idea of what happened to Rome, where everyone just sort of got rich and lazy and everyone just wanted to live like these eccentric lives with like drugs and partying and being on top without any real work, and that sort of led to the eventual demise of the Roman Empire. It's like taking that idea and setting it in, more like modern day New York City, except it's not that. It's a fantasy world that's named New Rome, but it very much it looks like New York City. There's a supernatural element to it too. I was like very into the idea of it. I mean, I sound kind of down, but I was like, this seems to me like it could be this really cool thing. Um, it just again was not hitting for me, and I was like pretty early on, like, yeah, this doesn't really feel that great. Now with Southland Tales, I pretty much every 5 years or so come back to like, I want to give Southland Tales another shot because I am very interested in it. Like it's like I really want to like it. And then every time I'm kind of like, I don't think I'm quite there with it. But this felt very similar to me. Like it's this wild idea, a bunch of recognizable actors in it, like this big swing at doing this big thing. And, it didn't really get great reviews. Um, but I will say, I want to leave the door open that I'm at least interested in watching it again down the road. I just was like, yeah, I think people were right that this is not that great. Like I want it to be, and it just feels like it's not.
Yeah, I think I was listening to. I think it was like the Big Picture
Yeah.
podcast, and I think they were kind of dumping on it too. So I never bothered to watch it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Because Coppola is like one of those directors for me that look, it's obviously like the peaks are like some of the biggest accomplishments in at least American film history with the Godfather movies, Apocalypse Now, even like The Conversation, which I just watched last year, is really cool. Which is actually I have very limited physical media for this episode. That's one I could have brought up because I got like the huge box set thing for The Conversation. But even his kind of more off the beaten path stuff, like I like his version of Rumblefish. I like this. I think it's called One from the Heart, which was like this disaster Las Vegas musical movie. But I kind of like it. I think it's kind of fun. So I've always thought he was just like this cool director that even when things really bottomed out, I was still kind of like digging some of his work. Um, but this one just didn't really land in either of those categories and is just felt like a mess to me and didn't really resonate. So
Bummer.
yeah,
Before, maybe after the show, you'll have to show me that box set because I've been interested in that. I've never seen
yeah.
The Conversation, but it was being talked about a lot with like physical media people on YouTube and stuff because it was like over $100 or something, wasn't it? It was like
I
the
don't think I paid
kickoff.
that much for it. I don't think I paid that much for it, but I
Oh,
mean, it wasn't cheap. I mean, it is like pretty, um, it's pretty intense. There's quite a bit to it. It's like one of those things where you don't even want to pull all of the things out of the box because
yeah.
there's like multiple pieces,
Doesn't it
which,
come with like a cassette tape or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
Yeah.
But have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't seen it.
It is really cool. It's another like Gene Hackman from the Night Moves era.
Yeah.
So it is a really cool movie. Got this like crazy like jazz score. So during one of the breaks I'll go grab it and I'll show it
Okay.
later this show. What else have you
All right.
been up to?
Cool. Um, I did make it to the theater once on Friday. Chris and I each took a half day because it was Valentine's Day.
I love it.
So yeah, while our kid was in daycare still, we went and we saw Hard Eyes, this
Yeah.
new like slasher movie, and I feel like I was duped a little bit with this movie. I
Wait,
feel
is
like
this the one where they're on the date?
yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah. So it's like it's kind of like your typical slasher mixed with like a rom-com,
I'm not
and
sure I'm thinking about the right movie. Is this where she's on a date with somebody and then starts getting text messages about a killer? I think I'm thinking of the wrong movie.
That might have been in the trailer or something, but I feel like the trailers that I saw for this sold it more as a traditional slasher movie, and then
Yeah.
it it was kind of this like millennial Gen Zer like comedy more
This
so
is
than a
yeah.
slasher.
This is not the
Um,
movie I thought it was, by the way.
okay.
I don't know what the hell. I mean, I got to tell you, I'm looking at this right now. I don't even remember seeing a trailer for this.
I thought the trailer looked good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool like kills in this movie. It's pretty violent, but contrast it with the meet cute and like just this silly romantic comedy where they're just making all these kitschy jokes and stuff, and I wasn't that into the comedy aspect of the movie.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was for an audience a little bit younger than me maybe.
What did you rate it?
I think I only rated it like 3 stars because I did really like the slasher elements of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
um
Yeah. Like, and we've talked about it before, but I still think of 3 as like I walked away with a positive feeling. Like,
yeah. I
once I start getting to like 2.5, that's when it starts like turning
Yeah,
negative, which is what I gave Megalopolis, by the way, 2.5, where it's like, eh, maybe there's some things that could eke me over being like average, but I'm more now turning negative. Like 3 is my last like this is a positive score.
yeah, and talking about it now, I might go back and change it to 2.5 because I think
Well,
I
you actually, I
dislike the
mean,
comedy that much.
yeah, yeah, I hear you. I don't know. I guess sometimes the difference between a 3 and a 3.5 for me can be kind of grand because I do. I mean, maybe I'm gonna have to like defend this on every episode of this show, but I do consider 3.5 a positive score. Like that, I like. I'm like
I
I
think
like
that's a
this movie.
positive
This is like a
score.
B plus. This is like a B plus for me. That's a 3.5.
Yeah, like you're saying, I feel like anything 2.5 and lower is like bad.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Um,
But two other things I just wanted to quickly mention. I got some cool physical releases. I found these on eBay for a pretty good price. I think they're both out of print, but I only paid like 25 bucks each for these,
yeah,
25 or 30, but I got
nice.
Pieces and
Love it.
Cannibal Holocaust.
Uh, I've never seen Pieces. I will say Cannibal Holocaust is one of those movies where it's like people tell you like not to watch it.
There's some stuff that was, yeah, pretty intense, kind of hard to watch.
Yeah.
I posted about it on Instagram, and our buddy Dustin texted me about it,
Let me guess. He was
saying
like masterpiece.
I don't think he had that opinion of it, but he did tell me about the first time he watched it like a long time ago, and we're talking
Yeah.
about how how he's a vegetarian or
Right.
vegan,
Right.
and like there's a whole bunch of stuff in that movie where they kill live animals and it's actually happening.
Yes. Which is
But
hard to watch.
yeah, but the cool thing about that, it's from Grindhouse, I think, Grindhouse Releasing.
Hmm.
Both of those are actually. There's a cut of the movie on there where it takes all that stuff out. So it just cuts out
Oh,
like
cool. Yeah.
that stuff. So, and apparently that was like upon the request of the director. Like even the director kind of has gone back and said like I like he regrets putting that stuff in the movie. So you can watch it with the stuff in it because Grindhouse like there's like a little note before you watch the movie that says we don't believe in censorship, so you can watch it either way basically,
Sure. Sure.
which I thought was pretty cool for like a
Yeah.
physical release.
That's the only version I've seen. I think I watched it on like a Netflix disc rental back around like 2009. Actually, Dustin is probably who, you know, I was talking to around that time in terms of like how I even became aware of that movie. It was
Hmm.
one of those ones I think I knew about for like, I don't know, probably a year or two before I saw it. And he was probably the person that was talking to me about it. And then I did watch it in like '09. And yeah, it was a little bit rough to get through the animal stuff because it is pretty messed up.
Yeah, and I didn't even see any of that because I watched the version that was like the
Oh, good.
PETA version or whatever
Yeah.
people call it.
Yeah.
But
I can't
there's
really even remember where the story fully goes. I mean, is it just people getting killed by like this local tribe or whatever?
so like the first part of the movie is this guy goes on this mission to find these missing filmmakers. There's these documentary filmmakers. They go
Mhm.
and
Right.
they're just making a documentary or whatever, and this guy's on this mission to go and like find them, find out what happened to them. But he ends up finding out that they're all dead, but he finds their all their film canisters and he brings them back. So then like the second part of the movie is them going through all the footage and you're kind of watching that. It's cutting back and forth between the guy who went on this mission talking about it, and then you come to find out the people that the original filmmakers, it kind of portrays them as like normal documentary people in the beginning,
Hmm.
and then you find out that they're just these huge assholes that were like they were treating they were like they were well, I can't say it rhymes with grape. They were doing that
Okay.
to you get I think you get banned or something on YouTube if you say that word on out loud. Um,
Oh,
but anyways, yeah, they're horrible people. And yeah, it kind of just goes through what happened to them. And there's some really hard stuff to watch, even beyond the animal stuff.
yeah.
Like I said, some stuff that rhymes with grape, and
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know what's great. I have no idea what the word is.
You don't know what I'm talking about?
No, you might have to text it to me.
Um, Sexual assault. I'll just say that. I think you
Oh,
can say that. I think you can say that
drop
on
the
YouTube.
G. I was like, vape? What? YouTube won't let you say vape? Although, which is also horrific, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Vaping is terrible.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Sometimes I'm just like, things just go just right past me,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
anyways, I feel like that was just one of those movies that is often talked about, and I had never seen it, and I just wanted to knock it off my list and be able to say that
Yeah.
I've seen it.
But
So
I feel like I'm in the same boat. That's why I watched it. It's like one of those, like, well, you need to see it at some point, but then, like, you can just forget about it, which I obviously I've
yeah,
blocked out some of the stuff from it. Um,
yeah. I did actually enjoy it though, like thinking about the film as a whole. Like it kind of
yeah,
has these themes of like it's kind of like cliche now in horror movies, but like who is the real monster, Like is
true.
it
Yeah.
is it like white society, or is it, who's the savages, the white
Yeah, yeah. And
documentarians,
it is
or
a
is it
cool
the
way.
huh?
Oh, sorry. It is a cool way to explore like the story, the way that you just explained it. Like they find the footage and then you're like it's slowly realizing not only what
Yeah.
happened to these people, but they were actually like the horrible ones.
Yeah, because in the beginning you don't really know, and you find
Yeah.
you see that they're dead, obviously, but you don't know how that happened. And as you find that out, you're like, oh my god, these people suck.
Um Okay. And what about Pieces?
Pieces was kind of more of just like a straightforward slasher, but I did really like it. I liked that one a lot actually. It was super fun.
Okay. What did
The
you rate
killer
that?
uses I think I rated it 4.5.
I love it. Okay.
I loved it, dude. It's
Heavy
like
recommend.
heavy recommend if you're into like over the top gore, super gory stuff. Like when I was watching it, I was thinking a lot about the new Terrifier movie. I don't know if you watch any of those, but
No, I've seen zero Terrifier movies.
there's this infamous scene in the new Terrifier, Terrifier 3, that takes place in a shower and he's using a chainsaw. And it's super gory and messed up. And that's like, you get like a bunch of scenes like that in this movie, people getting like limbs chopped off and stuff. But it's like, it's with like the practical effects and stuff. Like, I thought it was
Hey,
awesome.
listen, I'm here for it. Um, okay, so two good ones from you, and
Yeah.
I do have one editorial note from the last episode before we get into the regular show, which is Lindsay felt very misrepresented because as she was listening to the explanation about Rain of Fire, she was like, "Oh, this sounds interesting. I'd like to watch this." And then, we went on to be like, "Oh, she would have zero interest." Although I do think that she's just like a Keith fan, so anything like like next week she'll be like, "Oh, let's watch Pieces."
Hell yeah. I'm sorry, Lindsay.
Yeah, so yes, I did have to like go on the record and just say,
Okay, I didn't actually like write down a list, but since we're talking about Lindsay, she requested the a top 5 dad bro movies list. Do
That's
you
true.
want to do that real quick?
Yeah, please, yeah. Well, this is
We're
the
already
Lindsay
20
segment.
we're already 20 minutes in and haven't actually started the show, but
Well, that's okay. I
well,
do think some of these segments are going to be shorter this week.
right, right. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about with demons. Um,
Go ahead.
but so off the top of my head, my 5 top dad bro movies, if you have a dad, he probably likes these movies,
Okay,
would
that's
be
well. Hold on a second. Let's just take a beat to really like. Is that what a dad bro movie is?
that's
I feel
my
like
definition of a dad
okay.
bro movie.
I was picturing like you're a dad bro, like you're a
Well, I am
dad,
a dad
but
bro, but
like, but I wouldn't confuse you with like my dad. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
it's wishy-washy.
yeah, it is tough. I don't know. Okay, so let's just go with. I mean, look, it's your term, it's your definition. Here's Keith with top 5 dad bro movies.
All right, number 1, Braveheart. Classic. Number 2, um I should have wrote these down, I forgot. Uh Saving Private Ryan. That's another
Wow.
one
Okay,
that all dads love.
that seems like too violent and sad, but I guess it's like there is a I think in Entourage they talk about guy cry movies. I feel like Saving Private Ryan is a guy cry movie.
But it's like the whole World War II aspect of it, you know? Like there's
Yeah,
tons of
yeah.
action.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like it's a dad movie.
I think and listen, it's your list and look, you've coined the term as far as I know. I don't even know what I'm still like grasping at what a dad bro is.
Okay, a dad bro movie is just a dad movie. That's what I should say. It's a
Okay.
movie that a dad loves.
Okay.
With that
And
definition in mind, we
yeah.
have Braveheart, Saving Private Ryan,
Okay.
The Patriot,
Yeah.
more Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
What were the other two I thought about?
Mel Gibson is like the dad bro guy, although this category seems a little bit different. I was kind of picturing like the TNT, which is this has some crossover with this list, but like the movies that played on TNT, TBS, like all the effing time,
Yeah,
like
so
Roadhouse is one of those, but
the
that,
other two, probably like the Terminator and the Predator, right
yeah,
there. How about
okay,
that?
yeah, that's a good list.
Round it out
Yeah,
with Terminator and the
yeah.
Predator.
Well, then it almost feels like Rain of Fire is like a tier two. That it's not from. It wasn't
It,
born in the right era.
yeah, I'll have to think harder about it to get the like B Squad dad bro movies in
Yeah.
there, you know.
Top 5 B Squad dad bro movies because I do
Yeah.
feel like Rain of Fire is B Squad because it doesn't get the play that those 5 do.
Dude, in my house, it will.
I know, but it doesn't. It just doesn't have that like pop on TNT and there's a chance that you're seeing Rain of Fire.
Yeah.
Maybe at one point. I don't
All
know.
right, I'll have to think about the list. It'll be revised for next episode maybe.
Yeah. No, this was good. That is a good list. Like those movies that you listed off do remind me of the same thing. So I'm
Yeah,
now understanding like what it is
just
more.
very masculine vibes with him, you know.
Yeah. I mean, Mel Gibson maybe is like the dad bro. Like he's the face of dad bro movies.
I would say so. I mean, he
Yeah.
has, yeah, The Patriot Alone and Braveheart for sure. Okay, Matt, let's talk about your blind buy.
Okay, so I teased this last week. This was a recent blind buy, and it was still in shrink wrap when I watched it. This is Kino Lorber release, 1988 movie, written and directed by Steve Desjarnais, who was not on my radar at all. No idea what other work he's done, but I was very interested in this just from the picture on the cover, as well as a score by Tangerine Dream. It was from the 80s. The cast is mostly unrecognizable by me. However, in the leading role, Anthony Edwards, Goose from Top Gun, not Anthony Edwards, maybe the best player in the NBA right now, which I'm sure is on your radar, Keith.
I haven't watched a single NBA game in probably 15 years.
It's actually there was a time on the last show with Zach where one of the listeners wrote in asking us, we'd get questions from them, and they asked us if somebody asked if the Minnesota Timberwolves would uh, ever win a championship or win a championship with the current team or whatever. And I hadn't really been paying closely attention for a little while, and I was like, no, because they don't have one of the best players in the league. And I realized like probably 6 months after that that they do have like maybe the best player in the entire league. So, I kind of go in and out of watching basketball closely, especially since moving to Pittsburgh. Not NBA, not super big in this
I
town.
mean,
But
I living in Wisconsin, I hear about Giannis all the time,
well,
but
that's true. Yeah,
yeah,
you do yeah. But if there's a Milwaukee team to love, it's certainly the Brewers because who has a better mascot than that?
yeah.
Okay, so here's my thoughts on Mile. This movie is actually weirdly beloved. It's a 3.8 on Letterboxd. I gave it a 3.5 on the first watch. It's sort of a yuppie in peril slash catastrophe movie. It has very similar pacing to After Hours and 3 O'clock High. It's like that. There's this sort of frantic kind of everything's constantly moving. Our hero keeps having obstacles put in his way that he needs to overcome. There is a bodybuilder in the movie that plays kind of a key role, and once again, for some reason, bodybuilding very prominent in the last couple weeks of my life. I also watched this sidebar movie directed by Bob Rafelson called Stay Hungry, which has oh, what's his name? Sorry, I have to.
You
Jeff
good?
Bridges.
Oh,
Jeff Bridges and Arnold Schwarzenegger in an early role where he's like this bodybuilder that like I don't know dresses up in a cape and a mask when he's lifting weights. This is who also plays like I don't know the fiddle in some sort of string band. Like it is like one of the weirdest movies I've watched in a long time.
what is
Like
that
I
one
just
called?
it's called Stay Hungry.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that one.
Yeah, you're gonna have to check it out because it's like super weird, but bodybuilding is a big part of it. I didn't even know like Schwarzenegger was acting yet at this point. I don't know. It might be his first role. I'm really not sure, but you're gonna have to check that out. So I've seen like 3 movies in the last couple of weeks with bodybuilding being a big part of it, and this stuff haunts my dreams. It's nightmare induced. I don't know what it is, but like people with the crazy muscles like bulging all over the place. It's just like I don't get it. I mean, obviously none of that happening here, but I just have never been able to understand that world. So this was pretty fun. I definitely wasn't like, holy hell, I love this movie. I gave it a 3.5 for the first viewing, which again is a positive score. I did like it. And it is like really, there's parts of it that are really cool. Although it started with the Tangerine Dream score, and I had that feeling like this score seems too good for the movie that it accompanies. But like I said, I think a lot of people are like, no, this is like it. It must have like a hidden gem quality to it to some people because I don't think it was ever a big movie. Maybe it found life down the road, but those Tangerine Dream scores from the '80s are like really cool, really like moody, a lot of like synthesizers, and this one is no different. That was a highlight for me. A guy picks up a call by mistake outside of a diner, at 4 in the morning, trying to meet some girl, and the phone call is like talking about a nuclear attack coming to hit Los Angeles, and the next hour plus of the movie is trying to get this girl who's a girl that he just met and then like escaping from Los Angeles so that they don't die in nuclear explosions. And at some point it actually starts happening. I totally thought as it was heading to the finish that this wasn't real because everyone's starting to like buy, like everyone's finding out this is happening and everyone's trying to like escape LA as the movie's going on. And I totally was like, you know what's going to happen? We're going to find out that this wasn't real. like,
Like the
and there
threat
is
of
no,
the nuclear bomb wasn't real, or
yeah, like it, yeah, and nothing's going to actually happen. And they've gone into this like disaster mode because it really does become like a disaster movie at a certain point where everyone's like just trying to fight over each other to escape LA, as they say. But it, it's a weird. There's like comedic element too, so it is like sort of weird to try to get the tone. But I will say, it was reminding me of like dreams that I've had where the world is ending. I made my letterbox review just like catastrophic thinking, the motion picture, because that's what it reminds me of. This guy is like he has a weird job for like an '80s. I don't know that you could consider it a yuppie in peril movie because he's like a trombonist. like he's not like a banker or something, which is like normally the people that are like leading in these movies. But he's kind of like, I can't find a girlfriend. Similar struggles to people today, and he meets this girl, and he's like supposed to go meet her for the first like date or second hang or whatever. It's very early days, and he sleeps through his alarm. She works in a diner, so she works till like midnight. He sleeps through his alarm. She's already left by the time he gets to the diner. So he's like, "This is it. I've spent my whole life trying to meet this girl." And then, of course, I pick up a phone call that LA is going to be pulverized overnight. So it was just reminding me of like the movie is a disaster movie, but it's also like kind of people who just think everything is a disaster. It is fun though.
did you say it kind of felt like After Hours a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, for
Okay.
sure. It has a
I'm
similar
actually
like,
interested now. That sounds
oh
pretty
yeah,
cool.
I think you would kind of like this. It's definitely like it gets wilder and it's definitely like a little goofier than After Hours, but After Hours is kind of a goofy movie and I don't know. Like I said, I was a 3.5. I will watch it again at some point. This is probably in that category like if you came over to my house right now and you were like pick 5 movies and I'll pick one of them and that's what we'll watch,
Hmm.
which is how Lindsay and I basically pick movies every night. That's how I get her to participate.
I do
Um,
that with Chris too. I'll usually only give her like 3 options
we do
though.
we
Like
we really
I
do
feel like
3.
yeah.
Yeah, we really do 3 as well, but, I would if you came over right now, I'd be like and you said pick 5 movies and I'll pick 1, that would be on the list. Like, I think you would have a fun time watching it with me because it does get, kinda goofy and almost B level of, action and entertainment as it rolls on, but
Nice.
I don't know. It was an interesting watch, so
I'll put it on my list. Sometimes I feel like when movies are a little bit obscure and kind of somewhat forgotten about, I feel like the letterbox crowd will, grade those with a scale, kind of like how
rally
I grade
around
my
it.
stuff with a scale.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I never heard of this movie, but it's kind of cool, so I'll give it, a higher score.
Yeah, and sometimes I do too. It's just like I'm not ready to say this is 5 stars or anything after one viewing. I mean,
Yeah.
if it becomes a movie that like every summer I'm like, "Oh, I want to watch Miracle Mile," then I could see a spot for it up there, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. Okay. Is that enough on that movie, you think?
I think
Covered
so.
it
I don't
covered it
have
well
much more
enough?
to say. But it is one of those ones. I've had some huge regrets over some of these random ass movies that I've bought, and this is definitely not one of those. This is one that I'm like, yes, this is what I wanted it to be.
Okay, Cool.
So that being said, we're gonna skip your blind buy, right?
Yeah, so this week we're gonna skip my blind buy because my pick was actually Demons 2, but I assigned Matt Demons 1, the original Demons. So I
Yeah,
figured it's
very
probably
grateful to
better to
you.
just what what's that?
I said I'm very grateful to you for that.
Yeah. um well, I just figured it'd probably be better to just talk about them both together. So we'll save Demons 2 for after whenever we talk about Demons 1, which was Matt's homework for the week. So instead, we'll skip ahead to my in the mood for,
All right.
and I feel like you do a much better job, Matt, of explaining why you're in the mood for stuff. So
Well, yeah, you better hold on to your butts for this week because it's gonna get real wild as to why I'm in the mood for my pick.
okay. Well, so my pick was 30 Days a Night
I
from
love it.
2007.
Yeah,
Um, and the reason why I was in the mood for this was just because it kind of has been snowing a lot here, and it's a pretty fun, like, wintry horror vampire movie.
that's enough. That's enough of an explanation. Um,
I feel like there's only a couple wintry horror movies that I'm aware of, at least, that I think are like really awesome.
yeah,
Mostly just this and The Thing. I can't even really think of anything else off the top of my head that's like a
I
wintry.
usually uh, I usually do The Shining too.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I love this movie because it's kind of like a pretty unique take on the vampire tale, I guess you would say.
So it always sort of reminds me of Storm of the Century, the way that it starts off, because it's like this weird
With
mystery guy in a
the
jail
ship
cell.
and all that.
Just who's the
His
kind of
name's
villain?
Ben
It's
Foster is his
Ben
name in real
Foster.
life. In the movie, he's credited as the Stranger, and he's just like the
Yeah.
vampire simp.
Right. I don't know if you thought I was talking about A Perfect Storm when you were asking about the ship.
Okay, I might have been mixing that up.
Storm of the Century was like a made-for-TV movie that was, I think, written by Stephen King, but not based off a book. Like he just wrote like a teleplay for it.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've
And
seen that movie.
it's like a New England island, but it's like similar in the sense that there's this weird supernatural seeming like guy that has shown up and he's freaking everybody out and they put him in a jail cell, which is kind of like what happens in the beginning of this movie, right?
Yeah, so he's going around and he's like, you find out that he's just like I said, he's like the vampire simp. He's doing all this stuff for the vampires. He's kind of like so I think one of the things he does is he kills the sled dogs
Oh,
and he sabotages I think there's like a helicopter that he sabotages. Basically, he's just making it so people can't escape and tell the rest of the world about the vampires when they come because
oh
it's
yeah.
like good eating for the vampires when they get there because like if you don't know like based on the title of the movie it takes place in this town. I think it's in Alaska
Yeah.
where they lose sunlight for an entire month, which is like paradise for vampires, probably.
And
So
like a nightmare for me.
yeah,
I mean, I don't think it's a good place for like depression.
yeah.
You might need a sun lamp or something.
Well, this will come up when we talk about our spotlight, but I find movies like this that are just dark, very cozy. So
Yeah. No,
part
I
of the
understand
reason
that too.
part of the reason why I picked it for my in the mood, I just love dark movies like this. But yeah, I don't know
And
what
that
else.
has Josh Hartnett as like the lead, right?
Yeah, yeah, so he plays like this very charismatic sheriff, who's kind of on the outs with his wife. I think she's his wife, might be his girlfriend.
Mhm.
She's played by Melissa George. Her name's Stella in the movie. So
Good name.
there's kind of this like subplot of them like rekindling their relationship, I guess. Yeah, and then there's actually another connection with this movie to Children of Men,
Oh, cool.
minor.
Yeah.
The leader of the vampires, his name's Marlowe, but he's played by Danny Houston, who has a small
Oh,
role
yeah.
in in Children of Men.
He
His
has
role
a
in Children of Men's really small, but in this movie, I think he's great because like so he's like the leader of the vampires, and these vampires are like animalistic. They're like vicious, and like he does a really good job like being their leader. I think.
Yeah, and this what year did this come out? Oh, wait,
2007.
2007. Um, this was I don't know. This had to be like the Twilight era, right? I mean, we weren't getting like a ton of vampire content, and then they come in with, the Twilight movies, which then everybody has a certain idea of vampires, but this is like, hell
Yeah.
no, people, this is what vampires are really up to.
Dude, it's funny that you mentioned Twilight because I wrote this down. The director, David Slade, he also did Twilight Eclipse, one of the Twilight movies.
Oh wow,
So he did two vampire movies very different from each other.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Um,
it is weird. I think Twilight's maybe like for me the most forgotten thing that was like actually a really monster huge thing that like by the time it got to the end of it, it just already seemed like it was over, and
yeah.
like it's like a forgotten thing now. It's not like the Harry Potter movies, which like they keep revisiting and keep bringing back. Like Twilight was this thing that was like huge in a moment of time, and then it was almost like I feel like Kristen Stewart like disowned it, and then everyone was like, "Yeah, it sucks."
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
making
Dude,
that
I
up, but
remember it was massive though. I remember when
yeah,
I worked at the TV station when I was a camera guy. I remember
yeah.
having to go to the movie theater at the mall to interview girls who had like the team whatever shirts on, and they're all like screaming like it was like they were going to watch the Beatles or something.
Oh, I worked with I worked with girls who were in their 20s, 30s that were like taking off of work to go see like the second or third movie when it was coming in theaters.
Yeah, I think I've only seen the first one, and it's been a long time, so I don't want to dump on it too hard, but
Yeah. I think I only saw the first two, and I am totally comfortable dumping on them. um so yeah, interesting though, Josh Hartnett, I feel like I don't know, he kind of has disappeared for like long periods of time. Obviously, he was really big like teen heartthrob like in the years that preceded this and was in some of
Mhm.
those like kind of
The
teen rom-com
Faculty.
types. Yeah, oh yeah, The Faculty. Um and it felt like it was sort of over for him, but he has popped up randomly, and then it was sort of good. I don't know why. I've always kind of liked him. He was in Black Hawk Down, which I always thought was like an underrated war movie.
Dude, I actually was gonna say that in my top five dad bro movies, but I took it off the list.
Oh, yeah,
I love that movie though.
I do too. I also I've always found it to be, I guess, what I would say is an underrated war movie. I mean, I think it's a liked movie, but
Yeah.
for me, it's one of the ones that if you ask me to pick a war movie to put on, that's like top two or three.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of liked him, and I thought it was kind of fun to see him pop up in Oppenheimer. That was the
Oh
first
yeah.
time I've seen him in a
hmm
while. So
Yeah.
you know,
Dude, I was actually having the same thought and I looked it up. I don't have it in front of me now, but he actually kept working. I thought he took like a long break, but he did keep working. It was just a lot of TV and stuff that I just like
yeah,
wasn't aware of. But yeah,
which
he
is
was
the
a
same thing as
leading
not
man for a
working.
while for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, he did some movies that were like very forgettable, like Lucky Number 11.
hmm
So but that's okay. I think it's always good when people at least can continue to work, and then yeah, and then you don't know when the opportunities are going to come up to do something big. I mean, sometimes I'm kind of harsh on certain actors that like when you hear about them, you're like, really, you do all of this, and like these are the roles you've done. Like
hmm
that guy Jeremy Strong that was in like Succession and oh shit, what's the movie about the economic crisis with like Steve Carell and Ryan uh Gosling and
The Big Short.
The Big Short.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Strong is a guy that he is talked about like, oh, he's this crazy method actor like Daniel Day-Lewis, where he is so committed to the role and he's like so into it. But then I look at his career and I'm like, the kind of annoying guy on Succession. He was like good in a smaller role in The Big Short, but I'm like, really? Do you need this amount of commitment for these types of roles? But I do feel like I'm kind of harsh on that because Oppenheimer is a good example of like, Killian Murphy is a guy that's been around. He's been a lead, he's been a supporting guy, but I don't know that I ever would have had him as somebody that I'm like confusing him for the top players in terms of acting. But then Christopher Nolan's like, "Hey, I want you to be the lead in this Oppenheimer movie," and he goes to carry this, 3-hour movie and does like a phenomenal job. And I think it's just a reminder to me that if these guys like keep getting roles and keep getting opportunities, eventually it could be like the one where it's worth it to be like that committed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just have
Whenever you
to
talk
remind,
about Cillian Murphy, I automatically go to Sunshine, one of my favorite sci-fi movies.
of course,
But
yes.
but
Well,
no,
at
yeah, I
some
feel like that's a thing in Hollywood though now. It's like we're going off on a tangent, but like I feel like there aren't really any major like Tom Cruise, big time Denzel Washington like leading men that all they do is leading roles anymore, you know? I feel like that's
it's
kind of the
definitely
point you're getting
running
to.
out. Yeah, it's definitely running out. I do think some of it is kind of like the ADHD-ness of everyone where it's like we need something new. We need a shiny new toy all the time.
Yeah. I feel
Like
like the closest actor we have right now is like Ryan Gosling.
yeah.
He's pretty much always the leading actor. He never really takes like a character role. Um, I
Yeah,
don't know.
but there's definitely people that come in and they have like a little bit of a run and then they kind of fade to the back like Miles Teller or something. Like I don't know what he's up to right now. I'm sure he's going to have another moment, but
Yeah.
it's just hard to stay at the top anymore. And
Yeah.
I mean, it always was. It was hard to get there, but it's just hard to maintain that. And I think, we'll continue to see that evolve over time. But I don't know. It's just as I've gotten older and just have an appreciation for the art and the business side of it, it's like if you could just stay working and active, it's like, yeah, keep being dedicated to your craft because you never know when the moment's going to come that like one of these directors just picks you to be the person that headlines these movies. So
For sure.
Josh Hartnett, keep going, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
Okay,
point.
so just a couple final notes, just because I feel like we didn't really talk that much about the
People are
movie.
like, what movie are you talking about
Yeah.
again?
I do think, like I said, very atmospheric. I always think about The Thing when I watch this movie, just because I love the wintry setting. It's awesome. It's like it's super gory for like being a mainstream horror movie. I feel like there's some really cool kills in it. Where like there's one where this guy who's kind of like an outcast who he's not like a major character in the movie. I can't what's his name? Mark Boone Jr. I don't know if
Oh
you
yeah,
know that
yeah,
guy.
I know him. He was on like that motorcycle gang show, Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
He was like an early Christopher Nolan guy too. He's in Memento. He's
Uh-huh.
in Batman Begins.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember him from
Yeah.
Batman Begins.
So
Anyways, he has some cool stuff in the movie. Yeah, one of my favorite kills. He's driving this like it's like a snowplow thing, but it has like a massive chainsaw on the front of it, and he
oh
like
fun.
cuts he like cuts a vampire in half with it. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
There's some real like I think the cinematography is great in this movie. Like you were saying, the opening shots of the movie are like beautiful when you see
Yeah.
Ben Foster's character, the stranger, walking away from that big ship. And one of my favorite shots in the whole movie is like I don't know if they did it with a crane or a helicopter or what it was, but there's this really cool shot where they're flying over the town once the vampires are kind of just like F it, we're just gonna start killing everybody. So it's like pure chaos, and it almost feels more like a zombie movie than like a vampire movie. So there's
Okay.
like
Yeah.
so it's like this crane shot or this helicopter shot that flies over the town, and you're looking directly down like 90-degree angle, and you're just seeing like people shooting vampires with shotguns and stuff like, and people just getting ripped up. Like, so I love that. Love the cinematography.
What's not to love? Yeah, no, I do remember this feeling like because it's not like goofy really. Like it
No,
feels
it's
like a
very
very
serious.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
They're going for a very dark, serious tone for sure. And that's like probably the only one negative that I have in my notes here about the movie is this time watching it, I did kind of think some of the dialogue between Eben and Stella, like the two main leads, I feel like their chemistry was a little bit off, but in a goofier movie, you probably wouldn't care as much, but because they're going for such a serious, dark tone, like I feel like it kind of pulled me out of it a little bit,
yeah,
their relationship. But other than that, like I love this movie. That's not enough of a knock on it to like
yeah, yeah.
say it's not a good
What did
movie.
you rate? What do you rate it?
I don't think I logged it, but I would probably give this like 4.5. I love
Yeah.
this movie.
I did see it back in like 2008 on like DVD and I liked it too. I've never revisited it since then, but I did like it when I first saw it. So I'll put that on the list to rewatch. It can be on a future winter list for me.
Yeah, it's definitely a winter movie. I probably only ever watch it in the winter, but I think that I probably watch this at least once every year in the
Oh
winter.
wow, okay.
Yeah,
That's a
that's how
ringing
much I like
endorsement.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool. That's awesome. Okay.
I think that puts a cap on it, though. I've
With
said all I
some
needed to say.
with a long and winding road in
Yeah.
between. It's just a little bit like just because my brain like if we talk about one thing then it leads and then I'm like, "Wait,
Oh,
how do we circle back to like what the hell? Where did this start?
yeah, yeah.
Why are
Anyways,
you
that.
talking about Jeremy Strong? Is he in this movie? No."
All right, that's it for 30 Days a Night. All right, that was my pick, 30 Days a Night. What did you pick, Matt, for your In the Mood?
All right, this is going to be I'm going to have to take you on a little journey to get you to why I'm in the mood for this, okay?
I'm ready.
But my in the mood was actually a theater watch. No physical media in hand for this. I was in the mood for something I had never seen before. Okay.
That's okay. There's no rule against that.
Yeah. And the movie is One of Them Days, starring Kiki Palmer and SZA. And let me tell you something. I am like in a big SZA era of my life right now. I have like got it bad for SZA. I've
Dude,
been
I don't
listening
think
to
I
her
even
music.
know who SZA is. I'm gonna have to Google this
She
person.
does like R&B. I don't even really know how you describe it because there's so much like kind of rap that spills into singing stuff like how Drake is, but this is definitely more on the singing side. But she makes really cool music. She's only had a couple of albums. I actually bought one of them on vinyl yesterday from the record store. I could have brought that up here for physical media. Um, but I've been like digging her music for a couple years now, but slowly, just slowly getting into her. And then something has happened over the last month where it's just ratcheted up like 1,000,000%. I think when I saw that she was in this movie, I was like, wow, that's cool. I'm like, it's cool that she's acting in a movie. Like, that's fun. And it's a comedy. Not everybody can carry a comedy. So let's see how this goes. But I think after we recorded the last episode was the Grammys. And I really haven't been following music or mainstream music for quite a while, but Lindsay watches pretty much every award show. So she was watching the Grammys, and I had an unbelievable experience watching the Grammys this year. I was like, I cannot believe, I think music is having maybe its best moment right now that it has in a long time because it's hard for music to hit like the collective anymore, you know? Like, we've had Taylor Swift for the last 10 years and she's kind of dominated everything. And Beyonce's out there making some noise, but it's really only like the top couple people and you're like, okay, this is fun, but there's nothing new here. You're kind of having the same people that were dominating the charts over and over. Maybe somebody comes up with and makes a small impact with a single hit, but then they're gone. Um, Chapel Roan, Olivia Rodrigo, Sabrina Carpenter. I mean, these are th- like unbelievable albums from all three of them. They're all there. Charlie XCX closed the show with a big number. Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars did this song that they did together and won like best duet. This is how big everything is right now. Taylor Swift was there and was nominated for an award, and she was like such an afterthought. Like I'm listen. Pop music is in a really great place right now. Okay, that's all. That's all I'm gonna say on this. Um, but SZA presented an award and just looked absolutely stunning. I will tell you this, Keith. I'm gonna have to send you a picture. I briefly, for maybe 30 seconds of my life, had a picture of her in her dress from the Grammys as the background on my phone before before Lindsay swooped in and was like, "No, you
Before
can't
she
do that."
slapped the shit out of you.
No, she was just like, "You're a creep," and I'm like, "I'm just a fan, okay? I'm just a fan." You know what I mean? And she acted like, "Oh, that's so weird and so creepy," and I'm like, "Cause there's probably a thought that she was a lot younger. She's 35, so she's basically a peer of mine, you know?
Yeah.
Like, um, but I got her back, Keith, because she was giving me shit about this, and then I was like, "Didn't you have Kenny Pickett as the background on your phone while he was still in college? How about that?" How about that, creep? Okay.
I see her post. She's always posting about him on Instagram.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Look out, Matt.
And listen, she went from like kind of pissed and kind of annoyed to just started laughing. She knew she was caught. But I did remove the picture from my phone respectively. But I was like, Lynn's, I want to go see SZA's movie in the theater. And she really wanted to see A Complete Unknown. And I was like, okay, we'll do that, but we got to see SZA's movie first. So we went, and guess what? Lindsay rated it higher than I did. I did think it was really funny. I mean, it's kind of in the spirit of something like, Friday, where they're having this sort of all day adventure. They get in over their heads at times. But the two leads are just both really lovable and funny in it. There's a part, and I'm not going to spoil this. There was a part that I thought was so damn funny, and I laughed like super hard. And it's just like a quick throwaway thing where they show up at an apartment, and I'll just say they do a fun reference to like old westerns in a way that I was like, oh, that's so unique and funny. Even if it's silly and stupid, I was like, that 100% works. I gave it a 3.5 because plot wise, it's not great. Not that you need a great plot for a comedy, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like they spent that much time on the story. But there is a ton of fun to be had with it. And these two girls just have a bunch of charm, a bunch of spark. I thought they were super funny together. I'd probably put it similar to the Jennifer Lawrence movie from a couple years ago. That it's like, look, is it one of the all time great comedies? No, but is it kind of fun to just have R-rated comedies like back in the theater a little bit? I mean, they were kind of gone for a few years, so
I was a fan of that one. I
yeah,
can't even think of the name of it,
I
but
know. I was thinking that
she had
too. I
that
was like,
nude scene on the beach, and it was
yeah.
awesome.
I was like, anywhere but you, anyone but you, or something. I don't know. It's like I feel like there's a bunch of movies with similar type names anymore,
Yeah.
so I can't remember. But I did. It's like I think I gave that a 3.5 too. Like it's just like it's fun. It's not like a comedic masterpiece, but it's still like a really good time out at the theater, and it's fun to see, just the R-rated comedies making a little bit of a comeback.
Can we
But
talk
yeah,
about that scene for like 3 seconds though?
go ahead.
That Jennifer Lawrence nude scene.
I was gonna blow past it.
Well, dude, the funny thing about it was people were talking about that. I didn't see the movie until it came out on VOD. I think, actually, I think I watched it with J Bomb and Chris because he was here visiting and we were just
Yeah,
looking for something to watch. So we ended up renting it. And I knew about that nude scene, but I didn't know the context. I thought that it was just going to be like a sex scene or something.
oh,
And then
okay,
when
yeah.
you see that nude scene, she's like getting in a fight with people on the beach. It's like
Yeah, like a full-blown
so it was
fist
like
fight.
not sexual at all. It was just
No,
like she's
no.
running around naked and it was hilarious.
Yeah, it was funny. And there's like there was a lot of like funny parts. I don't think it was like blow for blow, pound for pound. Like you're not like going every scene and being like, there's great laughs in it, but they're sporadic, but there's some really strong ones in there. And that's probably pretty similar to One of Them Days, which
Mhm.
I saw Issa Rae was connected to it. I thought that she directed it, but then when the credits were rolling, yeah, she was not. But I was still into this, and like I said, gave it a 3.5. But Lindsay gave it a 4. So maybe I'm not the only one having a little SZA swoon right now.
Lindsay's a perv
Well, I mean, look, I
for
think you could be a
SZA.
yeah. I mean, I think you could be a fan of someone without being a creep, but I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe
Maybe
I
but
would use the
maybe
Kenny
making them
Pickett.
the background of your phone is going a little far though.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Um, I find her to be an inspiration. We'll just say that. So
Okay.
that's my in the mood. Something that I'd never seen before, but because I'm like sort of in SZA season right now, I needed to go see her movie.
Okay. That's fair. I've wanted to pick a new movie as my in the mood. Um, I just haven't done it yet.
Well,
I
there you
have so
go. Here's
many movies that are still in the shrink wrap that I need another in the shrink wrap
dude, me too.
segment.
And I've been going like a little nuts lately buying stuff again too. I was
Dude, oh, I was gonna tell you, I ordered that the movie that you picked for in the shrink wrap, Closed Circuit. Is that what it was called?
yes.
The Severin title.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
bought that because this website, I don't know if you've ever used it before, Brother Belial has
No.
a ton of it's like a huge severance sale right now, and I
Mm.
blacked out and just ordered like 10 movies blind from there.
Yeah, I just hit the 4K Criterion sale too because they did a sale on just their 4Ks.
Oh, really? Was that just on their website?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I don't know. It's starting to become a problem again, so I gotta like rein it back in. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It just is so much fun to buy these movies.
Yeah. And also, terrible news for me. I just found out there's a physical media store in Milwaukee now. Good
Yeah.
thing they're like an hour away.
Well, I think, and I know this doesn't really make any sense, but one of the rules that I try to make myself is just buy in person. Because if I just buy in person, there's a little bit of adventure to going out in the world and seeking something out and finding it. Now, I
Hmm.
don't abide by this rule that I've tried to impose on myself, but I think if you approach it that way, it's not a bad way. Like, hey, I'm making a day of this. I'm going and I'm gonna buy a handful of movies in person, like, and actually have the experience of finding something, as opposed to just like throwing something into Amazon and loading up your cart and having it show up at your door.
Yeah. I think it's called Blast Radius. Sorry. I'm
Oh,
just
you still
making
haven't
sure.
found it?
Yeah, I started following him on Instagram and I
How
can't find it now.
deep in the dark web are you having to go to find this movie store that you are
Okay,
frequenting now?
hold on. Yes, it is called Blast Radius. It's like a record store, but they also have tons of movies and stuff. But
Okay.
it's like the only like mom and pop shop that I've found locally that has stuff like Vinegar Syndrome and Severin and stuff like that. So
I
I'm
love
pretty
it.
excited
Well,
about this
maybe
place.
next time I come to Madison, we can make a quick pop up to
Yeah,
Milwaukee.
yeah. Anyways, is that enough on your movie? I think.
Yep, that's in the mood.
All right, it's time for this episode's spotlight. Matt, why don't you tell the people what we're spotlighting this week?
Very well, Keith. Released around Christmas of 2006, Children of Men is a film that feels like people just weren't quite ready for. Post apocalyptic and disaster movies generally exist to thrill and explore human behavior in the absence of societal structures. Director Alfonso Cuaron took a new and different angle for the genre, one that would eventually capture my interest when he asked audience to consider, what if we collectively lost the hope of legacy and a collective future? What if we are where it ends? What if humans lost the ability to procreate? When we take a look back to 2006, it's only 5 years removed from 9/11, a tragic disaster that's ripple effect of anxieties were no doubt still present when this movie came out. The next major seismic event of that scale would come 5 years ago with the COVID-19 pandemic. What strikes me now is the difference in how long those 5 years feel. The time between 9/11 and the Children of Men felt like a lifetime to a teenage me. The pandemic feels like it happened yesterday. I can still vividly remember my drive home from work in 2020, which would have been around this time, when we launched an attempt at a 2 week shutdown intended to thwart contagion. I had a moment where I was sitting behind an SUV at a stoplight where catastrophic thinking slowly crept in. I began to envision that everything we believed about society was on the brink of falling apart. What if there are no groceries at the grocery store? What if no one believes in our current economic system? What of my savings? What of my investments? Or worse yet, what if they stop manufacturing physical media?
Is that it?
No, there's more. It's just like
That would have been
what
a
a
good way to end it.
what a disaster that would be. um, I'll pick it up. I can't fight, and I don't really know how to do anything. At the time, I didn't know it, but what I needed was some inspiration from Michael Caine's character in this movie, where for me to figure out where I could actually fit into this type of world. We all know how the story goes, though. Life goes on, humanity adapts, overcomes, and marches on. One thing that's become far more apparent throughout my life and journey through movies is that every generation thinks the world is ending and that they're the ones witnessing it. The reasons are variable, but I can't help but feel like one's vision of self and their own struggle with mortality is where this stems from. What Quran really challenges with in Children of Men is, what if the disaster is simply our loss of hope? How would we react? Not well, as it turns out. Cynicism abound, dystopian like society, and global chaos. A major ethical and societal rail has been ripped from humankind in this story. and finding a glimmer of hope is seemingly impossible. That is, until a miracle happens. And Clive Owen's character, Theo Farron, has, through a series of events, become the primary protector of the Earth's first pregnant woman in almost 20 years. I would love to say that I'm a long-standing dues-paying member of the Children of Men fan club. I, however, had never seen it in its entirety until watching it for this episode of the show. When the trailers were playing in the theaters, I was highly interested. I really have no excuse other than I just missed it. It felt very up my alley. It seemed interesting, um, but it just didn't resonate with the masses. Maybe it was a little too cynical for the era. I was aware that it had found a second life and was now considered a top movie of its decade, but I just never found myself taking the plunge until now. So, Keith, you were the one that said we should do this, and it's kind of been floating around as something that I uh, wanted to just dive into at some point. I think I started watching it on streaming like within the last couple months, but I put it on before I went to bed, and of course I fell asleep, which is something that happens all the time and is certainly not indicative of any movie. I just put stuff on, all the time, and sometimes I fall asleep to things, much like Love Lies Bleeding last night. But I got to tell you, Alfonso Cuaron, I do have to have one more Lindsay anecdote in this episode. While SZA may be the reason that I get divorced, Alfonso Cuaron is one of the reasons why I'm probably married. In early on in mine and Lindsay's dating life, very early on, there was like a couple of conversations that really hit for me where it was like Lindsay scored like major points. One was we were talking about the Harry Potter movie series, which I'm not like a diehard fan of by any means. Um, but I have seen all of the main ones. I haven't seen all of like the new series or whatever. And I did see most of them in the movie theater. But my favorite and what I think is far and away the best Harry Potter movie is the third one, The Prisoner of Azkaban. And Lindsay agreed with me on that, which okay, fine, points for that. But she was then like, "Yeah, Alfonso Cuarón." She knew the director's name, and
Oh
it's not
yeah.
like, I mean, it's not like it's Steven Spielberg.
Was she a big E2 Mama Tambien fan?
No, I don't even know if she had watched like any of his other work, but she was really like big on Prisoner of Azkaban and was like, "Yes, I like Alfonso Cuarón now because of this movie." Me, on the other hand, I had seen E2 Mama Tambien probably around the same time that Children of Men came out. I watched it on HBO on demand in like, I don't know, 2006. It was probably around this time. No idea that he had directed Children of Men until like
Mm,
years later, until way later.
mhm.
But it is funny. That always like stuck with me, and was one of the reasons why I ended up being like, yeah, Lindsay's who I have to get married to because she knew Alfonso Cuarón directed The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Hell yeah.
But this was the movie after Prisoner of Azkaban, where he's now got a little bit of, Hollywood cred because he
This is
made
the one
something
for
that,
them, one for me type movie. This is
yeah,
like his
yeah,
one for me kind of.
yeah. Well, I think the sad thing is, I don't know if he ever really swung to make something like this kind of epic, such a grand scale again, because this
Well,
movie was.
Gravity came out after this, and Gravity is a pretty epic
That's
movie, I
true.
think.
You're right. Yeah, you're right about that. That's a good pushback. Because that was a big hit. Although I will say, doesn't Gravity kind of feel like a forgotten hit?
A little bit, yeah, I would say. I
It
feel
was
like at the time when it came out, it was huge though.
absolutely. It was like a flash in the pan movie where it was like, and I think I want to say there's some of the tracking shot stuff in that too.
Oh
Like,
yeah, there's a lot of I don't know. I don't think it's like a one take movie or
no,
a fake one take, but that's something that he's like known for with this movie for sure. There's a couple really good, really long one takes.
yeah,
And a lot of it is like handheld, which is super cool technically. Like I don't know how they pulled some of those things off because there's like all these practical effects and stuff. Like the one that I think of right away is like the one where the they're not terrorist group, the resistance group finally meets up and takes the girl Key and they go into the apartment building or whatever. That
Yeah,
dude, that shot is like 15 minutes. I don't know how long it
there's a
is. I
bunch
didn't
of them.
time it,
Yeah,
but
that
it's
that
very
has to be
long.
the longest one, but there's definitely a bunch of them. It was one of the things that I wrote down that I wanted to talk about because um, it's just these long tracking shots for the action sequences. And yeah, we've seen some of these movies like 1917 where it's like the whole movie is like feels like it's one long tracking shot, but this movie is like there's breaks in between them, you know.
Yeah.
But they are
Which I feel like
long.
is the way to do it. If you're gonna do these long takes, I don't think it's necessary for a whole movie to pretend to be one long take, you know.
Yeah,
I think this is like the perfect way to accomplish that goal of making it feel like you're like right there with, you know, the main characters and stuff. Like perfectly well done.
listen, I gotta tell you, I 100% agree with you. I think this is like a stroke of editing genius of how there's good timing and space in between. It like lets it breathe, and then you get
Mhm.
on these very frantic action sequences, but you kind of get a chance to catch your breath and think slow down again. Like I'm totally with you. I think it is really like a perfect blend.
Sometimes it starts happening, you don't even realize it until you're like you have to remind
It's
yourself that
seamless.
this is just one take.
Yeah,
Like that, like the shot where they're leaving the compound or whatever, and they're trying to start that car. It wasn't until they got like halfway down the hill this time when I was watching it, I was like, wait a minute, this is another one of those super long one takes. Like,
I know. It is seamless. You do sort of weave in and out of them. And they do I did recognize it that they have them when it's not action sequences too. Like it is happening in more casual scenes as
hmm
well. Which probably helps with like the seamless element of it. But there is just like normal like takes too, like weaved in.
hmm yeah,
Um so I think I just saw that you just watched E2 Mama Tame Bien, didn't you?
yeah. That was a first watch for me, and I the reason was because I figured we might talk about some other Alfonso movies, and that was just one that's been on my list for a long time, and I never got around to it, but I
Yeah,
loved it. It was
yeah,
great. Yeah.
it is good. Obviously, it's way different than this, and it's like smaller scale.
Yeah.
Although, if you're gonna pick some crossover, that movie is kind of exploring some of the differences in societal statuses. You know,
Oh yeah, for sure.
like
I did.
what
Yeah, they do
we're
have
looking
some
for.
similar themes. I would agree
Yeah,
with that for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So that's there a little bit, but this movie, the thing I was trying to hit on the intro before I, went laughing about my joke. I don't know. It's just so funny to me because it's like, yeah, that it's kind of crazy. If we were in some sort of event, or I guess in some sort of event again, where it seems like, the world is at risk, how high on the list of my concerns, like physical media is.
Dude, that's a constant like thing that I think about because I have my entire collection in the basement where I'm
Yeah.
at right now. It's like all behind me over there. I'm like, if my basement ever like flooded or something, that's why I keep my
Dude,
Criterions and like my boutique stuff like up higher.
I
I'm like, I
know.
would
I
be
yeah.
devastated if I lost all my stuff.
I know. I keep most of my nice stuff upstairs, and we do occasionally get water in the basement, but it's just like a little puddle. It's never been like bad.
Yeah.
Um, but it is like a thought and a risk. And I mean, I do have some nice stuff down there too, like because I can't keep everything nice upstairs. Lindsay would gut me. Um,
Yeah.
so, but listen, it's on my mind a lot. I mean, when people's houses were burning down in LA, I'm like, oh my gosh, can you imagine if our house burned down and all my movies were just gone?
Dude, that's actually something that came up with like physical media YouTubers. I can't remember the name of the guy right now. I
Yeah.
feel bad because I can't think of his name, but a prominent or semi-prominent physical media YouTuber lost his entire collection in those
Oh,
fires. And I think some people might have started like a GoFundMe or something for him.
that's cool.
If I can find it, I'll put it in the show notes on YouTube.
Yeah. I would probably just be out at that point, but I think slowly over time I would buy movies again, but I'd all of a sudden be like way more selective. Like I'm only buying the movies that I want to watch all the time. I think if I started over, I would do it that way.
Yeah, I would probably be the same for sure.
But since I'm not starting over and I'm still riding this wave, I'm still going to buy shitty movies that I've never seen before and give them a shot.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I blind bought 10 Severin titles all just like trashy Italian action and horror movies.
I love it. I love it. But Children of Men, I did see the trailers and I remember wanting to see this movie. Again, there was no part of me that was making any sort of Alfonso Cuaron connection. I love Prisoner of Azkaban. Didn't know that he directed it at the time. I probably recently at the time had seen E2 Mama Tamian, liked it, did not know he was the director of it. So none of that was at play, but I just saw the trailer and was like, wow, this looks really interesting to me. And it looks like a really powerful movie because I can remember how they were presenting the story. I can remember they showed this random black woman who was pregnant. I didn't recognize the actress or anything, but I of course knew Clive Owen. I of course knew Michael Caine, and all these people were in the trailer. And I was like, "Wow, this looks dark, but it looks like really cool." Because they were, at least my memory of it was presenting like the whole hope element of the movie behind, like, because they introduced the story a little bit, and you're like, "Oh wow, this is the first pregnant person in a significant amount of time, and it's going to be like this whole effort to try to protect this person." And I was like, this really looks up my alley. And I don't know what happened. I mean, I didn't make it out, and it just wasn't really a big hit. Although it did make like $70 million, which, even though it didn't make its budget back, that's still a decent amount of people seeing it. But at the time, it was considered a flop, and
I wasn't even aware of that either because like back in 2006, 2007, whenever this was that it came out, like
yeah, I think it was '06, but it was like right around Christmas, so it was
yeah.
basically a
I
'07
think
movie.
I mean obviously I was really into movies then and like buying a lot of DVDs and stuff, but that's where I first heard of this. This was like a blind buy for me, I think. This was like and it's one of my oldest Blu-rays that I have
Oh
actually. Yeah.
shit!
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've
And
had this since then.
so I had this is a good reason also why buying movies is okay, because I totally could have picked up a Blu-ray of this at some point, I'm sure, for like 5, 6, $7 at like the exchange. Instead, I spent $5 to rent it off Prime. So, like, I'm just saying, it's not a bad thing to have some of these movies. Now, look, if you're getting crazy and spending $80 on every, what do you call them? Chunky
The chunky
boxes?
boxes?
And
Yeah.
I'm sure is that like a term
That's
that,
like an industry term.
okay, yeah.
It's coined
Um,
on YouTube.
yeah, okay, very good. Yeah, so I'm not like up to speed with all this stuff, which is another reason why I need you in my life. You're like my bridge to that
Yeah. Okay.
world. But you know what I mean? I think as long as you're not buying $80 chunky boxes with every purchase, like,
Yeah.
there's value to be had in
Yeah.
purchasing physical media. So when did you buy that Blu-ray?
It would have been a pre-played purchase because
Wow.
I remember this, like I said before, became one of my like dark comfort movies.
Yeah.
Probably it's probably a little weirder to say that this is a comfort movie than 30 Days a Night because this is so bleak. It's
Oh
such
yeah.
a dark movie. Um, but
But it
yeah, I think at the time I was like obsessed with like post-apocalyptic type stuff, like
yeah.
stuff even like The Road and like, Dawn of the Dead and stuff like that. I
Right.
I kind of like it has a similar like feeling to it with like the dark cinematography and like just this like hopelessness, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
I like it too. I'm always interested in like kind of the human psyche side of it, which is why this movie like
yeah.
really works for that stuff.
Well,
Because
now obviously I think of it more. I have a higher regard for it because of that stuff. But back
yeah,
then, I was kind of just like, oh, look at this cool action, and it's like this
oh
dark movie,
totally.
and it's like somewhat post-apocalyptic, but not really. It's kind of like society on the verge of collapse, I guess.
Well, and I think this one is just interesting because it's like the thing that happened wasn't like, oh, it's not like a Miracle Mile where LA is being nuked. It's like, because people lost hope, everyone got bad. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, people just started going crazy because everyone lost hope, because humans have basically lost the ability to continue producing children. And the movie opens up with the last baby that was born is now like in his 20s or whatever, and gets killed.
Hmm.
um so it's just this world where everyone has lost hope, and then as a result of that, other bad things, uh the a big part of it is immigration, people being cast off from society, which of course people can make connections to what's going on today. um Although,
That's
just
one
a
of my
side note,
favorite things about it too, is because like I feel like at this time period too, England in general was like just bigger and in pop culture and stuff. And
Yeah.
I connected it a little bit with the movie V for Vendetta
Yeah.
because they're both similar in a weird way in that it's like the rest of the European countries are collapsing, and like you said, yeah, there's tons of refugees like flooding into the country.
Right.
And England is like they're like the one country that like outlives the stuff.
Yeah, they've become like the mecca, like they've survived, and it's kind of implied that the rest of the world has kind of destroyed itself.
Hmm.
They mention something happened in New York. They kind of talk about some of these other countries like in the past tense, like
Hmm.
Italy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's it's not overt, it's more subtle, but there's little things that make you aware that most of the world has kind of destroyed itself.
Hmm.
Um, and the Clive Owen character is at like a pit of depression when we meet him. I mean, gosh, it was like reminding me of my 20s.
Yeah, he
Like,
totally seems to have given up. I like
yeah,
I love the scene in the beginning of the movie where after this is like after he's in the coffee shop or whatever and there's
right.
like a bombing or something
Yeah,
and then he goes to work like kind of nonchalantly and then he goes and asks his boss if he can like take the rest of the day off, but he kind of lies to him and says that the reason is because of the youngest person alive dying. But
yeah.
you can totally tell that he's just
He's just
making up
using
this.
it to, yeah.
Yeah. So
Which,
he's given up so much that he doesn't even really care about that, you know?
yeah. Well, and like bombings are completely normalized. Like it's just something that
Yeah. Doesn't even
happens.
really affect him.
Yeah, other than the ringing in his ear, but he's not
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I was just in there 2 seconds before the bomb went off." And it is like
Yeah.
disturbing too because there's a woman that walks out like holding her arm or whatever.
Mhm.
Like it's just a brief shot and it is like fuzzy, thankfully, but it's what's the real term for that? What's like the filming term where the stuff in the forefront is clear and the stuff in the back
It's got
is
like a shallow depth of field
oh,
where
see?
like stuff
Yeah.
in the foreground is in focus and stuff in the background is blurry. Yeah.
See, that's why I love having you on this show because these are the things that I need to know. Other than my description of just a fuzzy background. um, but interesting point of note that this movie is based off a book. I
Mhm.
think, I mean, I didn't do hard research on this. I read a little bit, I listened to a little bit of stuff, but I think Alfonso Cuaron did not read the book, but liked the idea. And there's at least something that justifies that a little bit. When you get to the end of the movie and they show like the written by credits or screenplay by credits, it's like 6 people. So
Mhm.
makes me feel like there was a lot of rewrites, and then I'm sure he took final authority with, what the final version of the script was. I think there's a decent amount of changes. Um, from what I've read, it seems like they were all like pretty good to make it work for this movie for the story he wanted to tell. But the author of the book, she was in the coffee shop. So,
Right.
which
Yeah.
it is one of the characters that blows up, which I think it's a way to have the person be in the movie, which is a nice nod. But the more, I guess, symbolic element of it is, I think this is Quran telling you this is not the book, right?
Yeah.
Like famously in The Shining, um, they change the color of the car that the family drives, and then at some point you see a car accident and it's the real color of the car. I can't remember if it's like a Volkswagen Bug or something, but it's supposed to be red, but it's yellow. I don't know. I'm probably mixing up the details, but then they
And that's
show a
Stanley
red one.
Kubrick being like, "This is not Stephen King's The Shining.
Uh,
This is my The Shining." Yeah.
Absolutely right, and I think this is kind of a similar version to that. Like this is not the book, but it doesn't seem like that really bothers people from what I was reading, and I think even the author enjoys this adaptation. So it it is dark though, and that's where we're starting off. It's this future dystopian world. The government seems kind of evil, but we're really only seeing that from the perspective of the people we see it from. But we know at least something very bad is happening with immigrants. They're being mistreated. They're being cast off. They're being kept in these prisons. Or these camps. So obviously that lends credence to the fact that something horrible is happening with the government, but we don't really see everything that's going on. Um, there are drugs that exist that help you kill yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. That was one of the most interesting things. I think you see billboards of these advertisements, and
There's
I think
commercials too.
Michael Caine's character and his wife have them, but they don't
Yeah.
use them. There's kind of like a fake out moment at one
That
point.
that is a hilarious fake out moment.
Yeah, is that where he does the pull my finger joke?
No, he does the pull my
That's like
finger
later
joke
on.
when they're first in the car together and then before his death. But he does like no, because he wakes up like startled too.
Oh, that's
Like,
right. Yeah,
he's like basically the Clive Owen character is like, "Oh my gosh, I thought you were dead," but he's like, what the hell are you doing in my house?" Like it's
yeah.
just this.
I
It's a
I have to say I love Michael Caine's character in this movie too. I don't know if he was like a major character in the book, but in the movie he's so great, and I love how like that's kind of like his last like middle finger when he dies. He plays that pull my finger joke on the guy, and it's just like such a badass way to go. Like, dude, like I'm not gonna be afraid of you. Like he knows he's gonna die anyways, and he still pulls that pull my finger joke on him. Like I don't know, I love
yeah,
that part.
yeah. It's interesting because I don't know. You're used to Michael Caine being a certain type, and he's certainly an actor with range, but he's got that such distinct accent, and you're used to him being like a little bit more serious. Obviously, you and me are used to a very blubbery Alfred, just constantly crying about Master Bruce, like not settling down and getting a girlfriend.
Yeah.
So we're used to that version. I am very used to him as Scrooge in A Muppet Christmas Carol, which I've literally watched 1 million times. Um, so you are used to like a certain demeanor from Michael Caine, and he is like very whimsical in this. I guess the character is based on John Lennon, who Michael Caine was friends with at one point during his life, anyway. And you can kind of see that he does kind of have this like hippie mannerism to him. He's growing pot. He's just sort of hanging out, being weird. But
Mhm.
this is the most of what I think I could be in like a post-apocalyptic world. Not necessarily that I'd be growing weed, but like that I'm just like living in a shanty out in the woods, like clearly still collecting. Like I just have my 4K player. I'm pulling it out. We're watching Criterion's. That would be my
Smoking
dream.
strawberry flavored weed.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not that part for me
Yeah.
personally, but like, um, it would. This is like the closest I could find my niche in one of these, type dystopian futures. Like, I'm like, yes, I would be. I feel like I could be at home in this Michael Caine character's house.
Yes. I love his house too. His house is awesome.
I know it kind of reminds me something out of like the Ewoks or something. Like,
Yeah, yeah. He's
with
just
of
like
course,
living off the grid, just this
yeah,
hippie, just loving it.
I know it's great. So obviously this whole thing kicks off, and it's a big transformation story for the Clive Owen character Theo. He is in a dark place following this bombing, and he gets roped back into a woman from his past. His I don't know. Do they really get into this? I don't know if it's his ex-wife or if they were actually married. They certainly had a kid together.
I think they were
Um,
married.
yeah, but it doesn't really say if they were ever divorced, right? I think she just kind of disappeared.
I think so. Yeah, I think they were both part of the Fishers at one point, and he left. Maybe I could be
They were
getting
certain,
that wrong.
they were certainly political activists. I don't think the fishes existed. I think the fishes have come into play as part of what the government's doing now. They're like a more new school political
Okay.
activist group is the way I was taking it.
Okay.
But they were politically driven, but it was just a different world. Like
Right.
so I think the fishes are borderline like terrorist group. Like they've participated in bombings. Obviously, like they're fighting for a just cause, but as we'll see, you know,
Hmm.
there's a lot of dangerous motives with some of the people of the fishes, and
Hmm.
it doesn't all play out the way that I think maybe their leader would have wanted it to.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, he gets roped back into this because of his ex, who is leading this group now, and it's played by Julianne Moore, and her character name is Julian, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Real life and character name are the
well,
same.
yeah. Well, if
That's
she just
funny.
dropped off, cut some of those letters off of her
Yeah.
um, real first name, but basically, they know that they've got this pregnant woman. You know, he doesn't know that yet. He just knows that there's some woman that they need to transport out of the country to a safe space. And they act like he's only motivated by money. Now, that's not really 100% clear that that's true. Now, at one point, he does ask for more money, and I think they give it to him, but they're kind of playing with this. Is he still carrying a torch for Julian? And
Mhm.
I think so, right? I mean,
Don't they share a kiss in the car at one point when they're doing the thing with the ping pong ball or
she
whatever?
does kiss him at one point. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and I think they actually kissed
So
twice.
there's still a flirtation there, even though their relationship is clearly over, but they still have something going on.
For sure. And you do get a little glimpse at like, look, they had a kid, they lost the kid. It's sort of one of those things that neither of them are ever really able to recover from, and
Yeah.
their relationship is never able to overcome. But she decides to go pursue this whole life, but now she's stumbled across the thing that can change the world, and she has that person under her protection. And the thing that they're asking Theo for is he has a connection with someone that could help them get what they're calling transit papers, which I guess is just something that'll help you get through the government barriers in order to escape the country. And he originally, yeah, we're not 100% sure that he's just doing it for money. I think he definitely is happy to be reconnected with her a little bit. He does ask her at one point, when this is over, what happens to us? And she's just like, I don't know. But it to me it indicates, look, he's into this for more
I
than
do
just
feel
the
like
money.
I was also kind of getting a little bit of he's given up so much after the bombing at the very beginning and hearing about the baby or the youngest person dying, that he's given up so much so that he's just like F it, like I'm gonna give up my job and just go and do this thing, I guess. I don't know.
That's true too. I do think that there's a nothing to lose element for him.
Yeah,
Like, F it, yeah, I don't, what do I have to lose? Why not? So
yeah.
yeah, all of those things I think are probably a little bit of his reasoning, but he's certainly not doing it to achieve anything. At this point, he doesn't know that
Hmm.
this woman Key is pregnant. So he has to go visit his cousin, who's played by Danny Houston, which you referenced. Just a couple things from this scene, which is short, but kind of one of the things that kicks off the story. I mean, this guy is one of the wealthy people at the top who's been like isolated from whatever's going on. But it is like there's not a lot of mystery to it. They tell you. There's a question where Theo's like, "How do you like keep going with when the world is the way it is?" And the Danny Houston character is just like, "I don't think about it. This is it. I'm up here. I have my servants. I drink my fine wine. My son, who seems disturbed, is sitting next
Totally
to me
checked
every
out.
day."
He's playing that weird like 3D cube game with his
Yeah,
fingers or whatever.
which
Totally checked out.
that part may be like a little preview as to like where we were heading with the smartphone stuff and people just being on
Hmm.
devices all the time. That definitely
Yeah,
rung true. Like, I mean,
yeah,
this kid was just like a zombie playing this game.
yeah.
Sometimes I'm playing a little game where I have to like move colored balls into the same little pipe, and Lindsay's like, "You need to stop playing that." And I'm like, "It relaxes me." So like this scene was kind of like that, where I'll
Yeah,
just be sitting on the
foreshadowing a
couch
little
playing
bit.
that game, trying to relax, and then Lindsay has to like yell at me to take my pills.
Yeah.
No, but that certainly was something that hit me this time. I'm like, man, yeah, that's just like, but they don't talk about it that much in the movie, right? But one of the things that stood out to me and maybe like hit me to my core is we spend so much of the time with like the older characters, but this is supposed to be like a younger dude, and it's like the the younger people coming up with no hope of a future, like how dark is that? At least some of these other people had memories of a life being a certain way. Most of the
Yeah.
people we're around are like that, but this is someone who grew up with like, well, I'm not really going to be courting a woman or trying to get married or trying to have a family. It's just like So what is some of the
Yeah.
purpose? I'm not saying that there's things that
I
can't
didn't
be
make that
inserted all.
connection. I didn't make that connection before, but that is a really good point. Like they probably
Oh.
are trying to say something there with
Yeah,
the
I
younger
just think that he
character.
has nothing, and I think that there would be like anyone that was of kind of the last generation of youth. There's just, there's a life to be had, but there's no like life goals out there
Yeah.
for you. And I mean, I'm not saying that there's not other things to live for besides marriage and kids, but look at the world that you're in here. I mean, there's not much. I think he just has to stay up in his wealthy father's apartment, and this is sort of it.
Yeah.
Now, one of the fun little things in this apartment is the Danny Houston character has a floating pig in the air that is like from it. It's from the Pink Floyd album "Animals," I think, is where you see like a kind of a pig floating in the air. But that was just like a fun little. I'm sure there's something being said here. I mean, I think Pink Floyd was very anti, the machine
Hmm.
and government, and I'm sure some of that is a reference to it's just a Pink Floyd reference. But it is cool. Like it's just one of the more little fun things. I'm sure there's
Yeah.
probably like tons of YouTube videos that would
Well,
give you all these theories. But go ahead.
I think Danny's character kind of represents the kind of person that would just kind of just go on living the same way that they've always been living, and
Yeah,
maybe they're just like repressing the fact of like what's actually going on in the real world, where he talks
totally.
about like still collecting these expensive pieces of art and doing
Yeah.
all this stuff and just like totally like maybe it's just like shell shock or something that they're just like I'm just not going to live with this even in my mind. I'm just going to keep going on the way that you
Yeah.
know.
I guess it's the anti Michael Caine, right? It's like the other side
Yeah.
of it. It's like someone who was wealthy before, and it's like, you know, this whole thing happens, but this is a person that was disconnected from society when it was more like on the rails, just
Right.
because they couldn't relate to the struggles of
Yeah.
people who are trying to make their way up or are actually living the hard parts of just regular life every day. Like they were never able to relate to that because all of their problems could be solved with money, and they're just going to keep going. Like it's
Yeah.
like I don't care that the government has gone crazy and that there's bombings and that like we're treating these people horrifically. I did get the new chunky box of Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation. That would be me if I was the Danny
Yeah.
Houston character.
Yeah. I'm still ordering stuff from, Orbit DVD and Arrow Video in the apocalypse. As long as they're still shipping, I'm still buying.
That's so it's a small like sequence, but a memorable one that I think just has a lot to say about, different people in this current society. And
Yeah.
the story goes on from there. They do kick off, and yeah, I think that kind of brings us to basically the car scene is like the next more memorable one, which we get into one of these long tracking action sequences, and it starts with a car on fire that's blocking their path. It feels like maybe there's supposed to be a shock element to it. It feels like it's taking them a little too long to react to the severity of what's happening there.
Hmm.
Did you think that?
Are you talking about when they're escaping the compound, or is this
I'm
another?
talking about no. I'm talking about the when Julianne Moore is in the car and they
Oh,
first
what
get attacked.
before she gets shot?
Right. There's
Yeah.
the sequence starts with down in the distance a car that's completely engulfed in flames like comes down to block the road that they're driving through.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, I know what you're
And
talking
I
about.
just felt like you can see it from a distance, and they're like, "Oh, I think we can beat it." It's like to me, they should have immediately realized that they weren't going to be able to, and something was wrong.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is not a random event. I don't know about
Yeah.
you, Keith, but I don't recall a lot of times in my life where a completely engulfed in flames car just
Yeah.
randomly rolled onto the road I was driving down.
Yeah. And then that's supposed to be the group of people that come down and kind of attack the car. They're supposed to be. Who are those people supposed to be? I don't know.
It's their reference is just a gang.
Okay, they're just marauders.
Yeah, they're a
Yeah,
gang, but
yeah,
it things get chaotic really quick. Motorcycle comes and attacks the car. Again, this is one of these long tracking sequences that's shot really cool. You're feeling the action as it's happening. You're seeing it from the perspective of the people in the car.
hmm
Um, but Julian gets killed pretty quickly. She's just shot like right in the throat or something. It's pretty gross. There's blood everywhere. Um,
It's a pretty shocking moment because you're not really. I guess I wasn't really expecting it
yeah,
for
I
her
wasn't
to die
expecting
like
it.
that. Yeah,
I wasn't expecting it, but then at a certain point, you do realize that everyone's gonna die.
yeah.
It wasn't this, but at some point in the movie, I'm like, okay, this is. I'm like, everyone is gonna die in this
It's
journey.
that kind of movie. Yeah,
Yeah. Um. So now we're left with like a little bit of chaos, and the one moment that we really see Theo be emotional in the movie, he walks away from everyone and is alone in the woods and has like a complete emotional breakdown following Julian's death. I think he's now become a little lost, right? But things are happening so quickly that he doesn't really have that much time to
yeah.
think about motives right now. At this
And
point,
right before this, I mean, I guess we talked about it a little bit, but right before this, is this right before we saw Michael Caine die, or is this after? I'm misremembering. I think
we haven't gotten there yet.
we haven't got there yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Continue.
So I'll just tell you, I think it's indicative of how closed off he is and just how closed off people are in general, like in this world.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to have an emotional moment in front of everybody else. And he's normally stoic and, just sort of downtrodden about everything. So I think it's just a part of this world we live in now. It's like not really normal to be, you know, emotional in front of people. So he just goes and does it by himself. And it's really the only time um, we see an outburst like this from him. But it is sad. It's definitely sad because
Yeah.
you do feel like maybe there was a rekindling. They're mostly happy with each other. So it is like a bummer moment. And then we now have chaos amongst the fishes, where they need a new leader. That actor, that guy that plays Luke, that takes over. I can never say his
Yeah. I wrote it
name.
down. I probably pronounce it wrong, but Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Okay,
Um,
yeah. He's definitely in stuff. I think I mostly remember him from uh, the Firefly movie. I can't remember if Firefly was the TV series and then the movie was named something else.
he
Do you know
was
what I'm
the
talking about?
lead in 12 Years a Slave.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Um, but he's a good actor that's popped up in a decent
Mhm.
amount of things. But basically, everything that happens at this safe house that they go to now, Theo's not really sure what to do, but Key, the woman, basically asked him to come to the farm, and this is where it's really like a powerful moment in the movie. She reveals that she's pregnant, and I mean, he literally says Jesus Christ, which
Mhm.
is obviously supposed to be the holy shit reaction, but it's also there's a ton of like biblical type references in this movie too, you know.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of like wordplay going on, but that's like the most blatant, of course. Um, and this has now changed his perspective. I think he was here for some money, a little bit for his ex, and then a little bit for, well, who gives a shit? What else do I got to lose? But now it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with this information, but this is huge. This could change the world. He's immediately trying to tell the fishes to, like, hey, make this public. The world will rally around this. He understands that. And they're like, no, shut up, idiot. You're not in the fishes. Like, I don't want to be in your stupid group. I hate your name. So the next big thing that drives the story forward is Theo realizes that the fishes actually had Julian killed. This was an inside job. He overhears a conversation. These people want to keep Key, the pregnant woman, to move forward their own political agenda. I think it's to rally people around uprising over the government, which, their motives aren't necessarily bad, but they totally just want to use this girl for their own motives. It's not about like the miracle of life and preserving humanity. It's a completely, politically charged motivation on their front, and that's the reason that they had Julian killed, because she wants to return Key to, I can't remember what this thing is called, the Human Project, which no one even really fully knows what it's real or if it's real. I have a question on if like what the Human Project was doing. Like the whole idea of the movie is to get Key to them, but if no one else is pregnant, what the hell do they do?
Yeah, this might lead us down another tangent.
Go ahead.
It's definitely not needed, but so to me, I see like a million parallels between this movie and the show The Last of Us and the video game The
Yeah,
Last of Us.
I do agree. I saw some stuff there too.
So there's so many things, yeah, like the unlikely hero, who's kind of given up.
Yeah.
His former love interest dies at the beginning of the journey.
Yep.
Um, it deals a lot with martial law, the government taking over, and the resistance movement and all that. And the Fireflies in The Last of Us are basically the Fishers in this movie. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so they have the same goal too. It's a girl who basically has the key to rejuvenating
That's right.
society.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so like you said, I think it's probably something similar to what it is in The Last of Us, where they're trying to get the girl to like this group of scientists or something, is what my guess would be.
Yeah.
Um, maybe they're like working on how to make people be fertile again. I don't know.
Right. Right. Okay. So we don't really know. Nobody really knows.
Yeah.
But either way, he now, Theo, is going to take control of the situation and bring Key and this other woman, Miriam, who's part of the Fishes, uh, lead them on an escape. This is the other car scene that you were talking about,
Hmm.
where they have to like pop the clutch to start the car or something.
Yeah.
IDK cars. I don't know, but like, they're going down a hill and it's another long, tracking shot action sequence. That's another cool one. But basically at this point they go back to, Michael Caine's character. I can't remember. Is like Jasper or something? I don't
Jasper is his
remember.
name. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and that's where they do the fake out where you think he's dead because they
Mhm.
have the
Okay.
empty drug vials or whatever. And then he's like, no, I used those to kill rats or something. He
Yeah.
was just like passed out. It does not take long for the Fishes to figure out where he was, which is what I was thinking. I'm like, he was just visiting this guy like 2 weeks ago. I mean, I'm sure it's not that hard to figure that out,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? So they show up, and basically the whole thing that comes out of it is Jasper was able to figure out a way for them to get to one of the places where a boat's going to be, where they can sync up with the human project. But there is a pretty rough scene where Jasper gets killed. And yeah, to
Mhm.
your point, goes out with a bang by just repeatedly asking them to pull his finger, including like after he's getting shot, which I don't think you would do. I think after the first
Yeah.
time of being shot, you'd be like, holy shit, that was
Yeah.
horrible. Like,
That's what I love about that character though, is like he's just like this hippie dude, but
yeah,
like in his final moments, he's just like, F you guys, like you're not gonna like make me bow down to you, I think that is his character. He's kind of rebellious, but
yeah, yeah. No, I know. And they watch from afar as it happens. And Theo is like very shitty to the Miriam woman because she's like, I'm sorry that happened. He's like, don't touch me. Like,
yeah.
you're
Well,
a part of this group, basically.
she's associated with him, and
Yeah.
I mean, he's really the only friend of Luke's that you see, or sorry, not Luke,
Theo.
Theo, yeah.
Yeah.
He's really Theo's only friend that you see in the movie, other than
Well, yeah. And
Joel.
in a short period of time, he's now lost his
Yeah.
ex, the mother of his child, and his only friend. So
Yeah.
things have gotten pretty dark for him. And now he really, like, we used to think he had nothing to lose. Now he really has nothing to lose. So he's just going to keep driving forward on this mission. I'll skip a lot of the plot details, but basically they get to one of these refugee camps, and it's like pretty rough. I mean, you know, there's like concentration camp vibes.
Mhm.
It's just like a dark place, but there's what's explained as a gypsy woman who's there to help them, and they managed to birth the baby. Like, I gotta tell you, I don't know if I had it in me what Theo is able to do.
I mean, he doesn't do a whole lot. He's kind of just like, breathe, and then it just
Yeah, that's true.
happens.
But I would say he kind of remains calm through it, which is probably helpful.
Yeah, he has enough enough whereabouts to clean his hands off with his bottle of liquor.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if
yeah.
you
He
noticed
is
that a little bit, but
he is, by the way, a heavy boozer.
yeah.
I mean, he's drinking
Yeah.
throughout the movie. He never
Uh-huh.
seems drunk. At one point, Key calls him a drunk, which we didn't talk too much about the Key character, but I would describe her as cheeky.
Yeah.
She kind of just like talks a lot of shit. She's like pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Dude,
she
another
even like
parallel to the Last of Us too,
yeah,
because Ellie in that show and video game is just like she's basically the same kind of jokey character like
yeah,
that.
yeah. And I mean, she's like goofy through most of it. I mean, even at one point, he's like, "Who's the father?" And she's like, "I'm a virgin." And he's like, "What?" And then she's
Yeah.
like, "No, I'm kidding. Wouldn't that have been wicked though?"
Yeah.
Which I think thought that was really funny. But
Yeah.
they the baby's born. There's a guy named Sid that helps them, but then is against them, and that's its own little sequence that ends with Theo pretty brutally killing him. You want to talk about head injuries?
Oh, yeah. Doesn't he get his head smashed in the door or am I or no,
Well,
he hits him with like a
he's like coming
rock or
up to like
something, right?
peek around the door, and he hits him in the
That's yeah,
head
yeah,
with
yeah.
like something heavy.
Smacks him in the
Yeah.
face, yeah.
Once again, another, and that was like its own action sequence. But now we're on sort of the final journey of the movie, and Theo gets his last pair of shoes. This was kind of the last thing that I just want to make sure we hit on, because it's apparent to anyone watching that the shoes mean something.
Yeah.
And I
He's
had a
wearing
thought.
flip-flops for most of the movie, right?
Well, that's his second change of shoes. I can't remember if they focus before that. It's the first time.
Yeah.
It might be the first time it's focused on, but obviously he's wearing shoes before that. He leaves the house in his socks when they escape, so he needs a pair of shoes, and the only ones that seem to fit him that Michael Caine has is flip flops, which I was sort of taking as like a biblical reference, like wearing sandals. I don't know
Yeah.
that I can't really go much deeper than that. Other than that's what it seemed like it
Yeah.
was referencing to me. But now, after watching the whole movie, I sort of think the shoes thing mark kind of character changes along his journey. Like he went from being like completely dark and maybe motivated by money to now he's someone that lost someone who was very important to him, but he's going to carry on this journey sort of in her name, maybe with a little bit of like, hey, maybe there is some hope for the world. And then by the end, he gets this last pair of shoes, like Adidas or something. This is where he gets
Hmm.
the shoes in the refugee camp. And this is like hey, I'm now the sole protector of this woman and this
Hmm.
child, and I am going to see this through.
He
Like,
finally
so
has a purpose for himself, for sure, yeah.
yeah, so I don't know if there's any credence to that. I listened to a podcast about the show, and um I didn't nobody seemed to take it that way. So that but that
Yeah.
was just my initial impression, is like that it's kind of this marking of character
Hmm.
changes for Theo. And the last sequence is absolutely insane. It's like complete chaos. It's kind of war movie. It's kind of like Black Hawk Down. Like
Hmm.
they're just like in the streets in these slums, big shootout. People are getting killed. Charlie Hunnam is in this movie. We didn't really talk about it, but his character is like a dick. He gets killed.
Yeah, he's like a
Luke,
psycho with dreads.
yeah,
He's one of like
Lu-
the big main goons for the fishes or
that's
whatever.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Luke ends up being killed in kind of like the final confrontation before squeezing a few shots off in Theo's direction. But it's just this big, long action tracking sequence that is the grand finale of them all. And
It is like the most beautiful moment in the movie too, because you see the two sides and then the people that are just caught in the middle. And
yeah,
as they're walking out of the building with the baby crying, and everybody when they notice what it is,
that's right.
everybody stops shooting, and immediately after they get out and away from the area, the fighting starts back up again.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it is powerful. So
yeah,
you get to the end of the first action, and yeah, to your point, what you were saying is that he, and I think this harkens back to his point earlier in the movie when he just said, just go public with it, because if everybody sees this, they're gonna be like, wow.
yeah,
They may not know what to do, and of course, there's people that want to use it for their own reasons to move forward, but the general collective is like, holy shit, this is a big
yeah,
moment, and you really have nothing to do other than be in awe, which is what all these
yeah.
soldiers with guns are, and they just let the three characters, Theo, Key, and the baby, who has yet to be officially named, but
Mhm.
I do have to talk about that for a second, because I can't remember what the name of it was supposed to be when it was going to be a boy, but it was like Froley or something.
Yeah.
But then she goes, "Oh, well, since it's a girl, it's going to be Bazooka," which I was kind of thinking that might have been on like your daughter's possible names list.
We did have a long list, but no.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't think Christine was in support of that one, but I was like, I could see Keith proposing like Bazooka as a possible girl's name.
Bazooka and Joe being her middle name.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing.
No, I
Um,
did. Okay, so I did. If we had a boy, I really did want to name him Bruce Wayne, Bruce Wayne Campbell. So it would have been the trifecta, dude. He would have been Bruce Campbell from Evil
yeah,
Dead, Bruce Wayne Batman, and then Wayne Campbell, Wayne's World. The trifecta.
yes, that would have been absolutely genius. It's
Yes.
a real shame, but we are happy with Marley.
Yeah. Maybe I'll get
Um,
a hamster and name him Bruce Wayne Campbell or something.
yeah, there you go. What could have been.
Yeah.
But so the final sequence of the movie though is they get to the boat, they go where they need to go, and we discover that Theo is sort of bleeding out, and it's revealed that he got shot in that sequence. And look, there's one more moment, and I thought it was like the most predictable moment ever, but I don't care. Like, and it's that she's gonna say what she's gonna name the girl, and she's gonna name the girl Dylan, which was the name of Theo and Julian's kid who passed away.
Hmm.
I was like, with 40 minutes left of this movie, I'm like, she's gonna name the kid Dylan, boy or girl. She's gonna name the kid Dylan. Like, they put the pieces in place for it, right?
Yeah.
I don't care how predictable it was. I'm like, it's great,
Yeah.
and it's like the last thing that like he's it's more symbolic of what he's giving, you know what I mean? His legacy still lives on in a world where legacies were no longer able to live on. Like,
Hmm.
he's able to give something towards the future. It wasn't just saving this girl, but it's like a piece of him goes with it.
Yeah.
And then she's
Totally.
found by the boat, and we have credits with sounds of a baby, maybe multiple babies, kind of
Hmm.
crying, making like positive noises, and
Hmm.
it's, I think you're supposed to be indicative of this is going to work, and we're going to start having children in the world again.
Hmm.
Is that how you take it?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the whole movie is super bleak, but the ending is kind of hopeful for sure. Like they accomplish
Yeah.
their mission, they get her to what you would think is safety. I mean, I think it's a happy ending.
Yeah, I think so too. I think ultimately the loss of hope for everyone is so dark, but getting it back and having hope again, it's like you can kind of rally around. Well, it's like, look, this was a really dark period, and look, even in our lifetimes, I think there's a lot of peaks and valleys in terms of what's going on in the world, and it's never all great and it's never all horrible. It kind of goes in waves, and it's never one extreme, either at the top or at the bottom, but it's certainly closer to it at times than you want it to be, on the bleak side. But that's kind of the cycle of life, right? And I think in this one they've gone as dark as it possibly can, and now it's like we're gonna start an upswing.
Hmm.
Um, the one piece about the movie that I just want to say before we close that was also hitting me is, if you want to relate it to current times, and obviously, like we said, there's a ton of negative things that you certainly can and have good reason to, and be like, wow, I mean, some of this is stuff we're living through right now. I mean, not not to this level, but there's connections you could certainly draw. But the one that like is maybe a little more subtle is, the world has definitely become way more of a barrier to having children for economic reasons than any generations that preceded us. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
we're probably the first generation where, I mean, you and me as two dudes in our 30s that really started being like more serious about adult life type things, like not until we got into our 30s. And I can't speak for you. I'll speak for me. A lot of it had to do with like the economic viability of it. Like, there was no way I could support a marriage in my 20s. Like, it just coming out of
Yeah.
um, coming out of college into the job market at a time when the economy completely collapsed, and there just wasn't a lot of opportunity to make money. It's like a different version of this, right? I mean, there's no environmental thing like what they allude to in the movie that's been preventative, but it's just like way more expensive than it's ever been to
Yeah,
be able to like support a child. And I do think that we've seen a little bit of a downtick, at least for people starting families like as early as they used to, because
yeah,
it's it's a much more expensive world now. We continue to see inflation burst through the roof, and I do think that it's a kind of there is a little bit of a dark parallel that you can draw there, that we've seen some of this like naturally happen just because of economic restraints.
yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, and people listening probably know that I'm a new father, and it's
Yeah.
it's definitely a scary thing to think about, like the stuff going on. I've kind of checked out since I stopped working in news, and
Yeah, good.
it was so depressing for so
Yeah.
long. But I finally got out of working in news a couple years ago, and doing that is what finally gave me a job where I make enough money now where I feel like I'm secure enough and make enough money to pay for the necessities and all that. We're not like rich, but
Oh, of
we can
course.
pay for daycare and stuff. But daycare
Yeah.
still is like a huge chunk of me and my
Absolutely.
wife's salary. And like you were saying, yeah, just everything is so expensive. Doctor's visits, all that stuff. And yeah, people aren't making as much money as they once were. And it is scary to think about, like, if I were to lose my job, we would be in a tough spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Um, you're a resilient guy though.
yeah.
So you would survive better in a post-apocalyptic world than I would, I think.
I don't know.
I'd be killed like pretty quickly.
I,
But that was just sort of a little bit of the dark tie-in to real life. I mean, there's certainly a ton that I'm sure people would make, but that one for me was like,
yeah.
oof, there is a little bit of darkness there. But the flip side of it is, look, over the course of time, people, the world, we evolve and adapt. Like you do see it time and time again. So there is a positive side to it too, and maybe that's what this movie is saying, right? I mean, yeah,
I think
there's a
so.
long stretch of darkness, but maybe there's a glimmer of hope at the end, and we will turn this thing back around.
Yeah. Very well
So
said.
okay,
I
so I
agree.
think that does it for
Yeah.
Children of Men. You have anything else to add?
No, we covered pretty much everything. Yeah, I think it's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, but somehow listened to us talk about it for an hour, I think you should definitely
Yeah.
watch it.
Are you 5 stars on it?
I would say 5 stars. This is an amazing movie for sure.
Yeah, I think after my first watch, I was like, I think I'm 4.5, and then just as I started thinking through it more after the watch, I was like, no, you know what? This is a 5 star movie.
Yeah, dude, and like we talked about it a little bit, how it was not really that well received critically, at least. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I don't understand why it was not, at the time, praised like it is now. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of reasons that go into like the success of a movie or not. Like
Yeah.
timing, where the culture's at the time. It's really hard to explain. I'm sure we could go back and analyze it.
Yeah.
Um, like I tried to hit on a little bit. I mean, still only 5 years from 9/11, and I just don't know and we were in like still a very like wartime,
Yeah.
and I just
Maybe
don't
it's
know if
just too
people.
bleak for the time. People just didn't
Yeah,
want to see stuff like that. It was too real, maybe. I don't know.
yeah, or maybe it just didn't get marketed right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely found its life, and I know it's like a highly regarded movie now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, that was Children of Men. Let's move on.
All right, Keith. So everyone's favorite segment, homework. Last episode, I assigned you Night Moves, starring Gene Hackman, which is a movie that I thought you would like, and you'll have to tell me, did you like it?
Well, Matt, I can tell you that I did enjoy the movie.
Very good.
This is kind of a little bit more of like the noir type movie that I'm into. We spotlighted Brick last week,
Yeah,
I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, and I feel like, just like we talked about, like the dialogue was a little bit off, and it was like a quirky version of a noir, being
yeah.
set in a high school. This is
This is
this is
like
more of like a neo noir
Neo
that
noir.
like
Yeah.
I was definitely much more into this. I like the it has this like at least the middle section of the movie has this like airy 70s like
Yeah.
nonchalant vibe to it when they're in
Which is my
Florida and there's
favorite.
like
That
it's like
it's my absolute favorite.
the relationship that the woman has with was it Ellen's I'm forgetting all the people's names. Deli's stepfather is there and
Oh right, yeah.
the woman that Gene Hackman's character kind of like starts a thing with.
The blonde.
Um, yeah, and how they're so
Mm.
nonchalant. At one point, he asks him, he's like, "So what's the deal here? Like, are you guys together?" And they end up sleeping together. Like, I just love how like, and even when Gene Hackman's character finds out that his wife is cheating on him before all this
Yeah,
part of the
it's
movie,
infidelity abound.
when he confronts the guy who his wife is cheating on him with, it's almost like I was expecting him to knock him out, but he doesn't. They just kind
I
of have
know.
this conversation, like,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
just all that stuff combined just feels very 70s. You don't get stuff like that anymore, I don't think.
No, it's a great pick. I mean, by me, but
Yeah,
no,
thank you.
it's just such a fun movie to watch. But yeah, like the neo noir, just kind of sweaty, kind of grimy. Like Gene Hackman is perfect for those movies. It's not, the conversation is not that much like Night Moves, but I mean, I would say they're in the same camp. But I I do love watching it. I think on the last episode I said if they ever do a 4K, which I did know that they were doing a Criterion 4K, and I just completely forgot about it. And I have since,
I know.
in the
We
time
talked about that
between,
after the show.
have now pre-ordered the
Okay.
Criterion 4K.
At full price? You gonna do the full price?
No, it
Or are you
was
gonna
a
wait for a
Criterion
sale?
did no Criterion did a 4K sale.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So just the 4Ks were like 40% off or something. So
Yeah.
I got that. I got that and pre-ordered Anora too.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
So
I was
it
gonna
was
buy this on the Warner Archive or whatever that you said
I
this
have
was
that one.
on, but
Yeah.
then we talked about it. We're like, oh wait, actually, it's coming out on Criterion like next month, I think. So
Yeah.
I'll pick it up in a sale. I think.
Yeah. This is also a movie that I'd love to watch like with you at some point.
Yeah, there.
I don't know.
I don't want to say it's full of like funny dialogue, but there is some funny stuff. I texted you a really funny
Yeah,
line from like towards the end of the movie when he's
for
like,
sure.
yeah, I don't know if we want to say it, but
I don't know. It's a little explicit.
yeah, we'll pass over that one.
Yeah. But I'm glad you liked it. All right, it's been a long episode, so let's do um the homework you assigned me, which was Demons 1, although it's actually just called Demons. There's no 1 after the Demons.
Yes.
And Demons 2, the acclaimed and oft sought after sequel,
Yeah.
which you did as your blind buy. So
Yes.
let's start with Demons, which you talked about last episode and then assigned to me. I'll tell you, for the first like 20 minutes, half hour, I was like, this is better quality than I was expecting. And then it kind of got to the quality I was expecting.
Yeah, when it's introducing all the characters and stuff,
Yeah.
it yeah, you can feel the influence that Argento had on it, I think.
For sure, for sure. And like to start off, because when you have these ones that's like Dario Argento presents, you're like, okay, that means we're getting the lesser tier guy who's actually directing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like whenever it's anybody presents, like
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino presents, and it's like some garbage director or something.
So did
Like
you know that Lamberto Bava, the guy who directed this, is the son of Mario Bava, and Dario
uh,
and them were like buddies, so that's kind
no,
of like the link.
no, but I assumed there was a crew and that this guy was a part of it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, like I kind of like the opening stuff where there's this weird Phantom of the Opera guy like chasing them around a subway and
Dude,
giving them
another
tickets to a movie.
another fun fact real quick about that guy, if I can find it. I can't remember his name. His name in real life is Mikel Soavi,
Oh
the
yeah,
Metal Mask guy. He's the
yeah,
director of
of
Cemetery
Cemetery
Man.
Man. Yeah, I
Yeah.
recognize the name immediately.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's who he was playing. I saw his name in the credits. I didn't know it was that guy. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But yeah, I was sort of at first sort of surprised. I was kind of expecting the quality to be worse, but then yeah, like I said, I think it became a little bit more of what I was expecting once they're in the theater and people are having like, pimples on their neck explode and you become a demon.
Yeah. I think if you my way of describing this movie in like one sentence would just be Evil Dead, but in a movie theater.
Yeah, it almost felt a little phantasmy to me too. Although one of the unique angles to it was having this whole other gang that like show up halfway through the movie.
The punks, yeah.
Yeah, like
Uh-huh.
there was kind of like no reason for them to be involved, but they're like their
Yeah.
own story that collides into a story that was already going on.
I feel like the only reason or plot reason why they were even in the movie was to open the door to let the blind guy out, and
Yeah.
he's the one who kind of starts spreading the demonism, possession, whatever you call it, outside of the theater.
Right, right. Yes. Yes, that's true. We do go full global crisis for this movie too.
All right, and we're just gonna talk about Demons 2 at the same time because this is
Yeah,
a perfect point to jump off on.
please.
I was very disappointed. I didn't watch any trailers for Demons 2 before, buying it or whatever, but I
Yeah.
was assuming after watching Demons 1 and the way that it ends with like being a global thing, I
Yeah,
thought it was going to be like this
a
big,
continuation.
continuation where, it's just I think George is the guy's name is it? I don't know, it doesn't matter.
And let me
The
guess.
main the last man standing. I thought it was just going
What
to like follow his story.
was it not a
It
continuation?
was not. And basically if I understood it right, I only watched the movie once. I didn't really do any research, but it totally just like dismisses the first movie basically. Basically the
Oh,
second one is just Evil Dead in an apartment complex, like an
okay.
apartment building.
Yeah.
It's the very very similar vibe to this. It's just a
All different
different setting
characters?
basically. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Oh,
Which
one funny thing
yeah.
is though, two of the actors, the one main punk, he shows up in Demons 2 as a
Yeah.
security guard, and the pimp guy, he shows up. Bobby Rhodes is his name, who had like a very recognizable face to me. Like I thought I'd seen him in a bunch of other stuff, but then I looked him up and he's not in much else.
Okay.
Um, but he
It's like
shows
that
up in
girl from
Demons
Brick.
2. He shows up in Demons 2, and his character is awesome in Demon. He was my favorite character in both movies, though.
Oh, okay. So there is wait, is it the same guy playing a different character or the same
It's the
character?
same actors playing different characters
Okay,
in
okay,
Demons
gotcha. Yeah.
2. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, very fun. What do you rate Demons 1 and Demons 2?
Demons 1, I loved it, man. I think
Yeah.
it's probably like 4.5 for me.
Wow,
I just
okay.
love how
Yeah.
crazy the gore is and all the like practical effects and like we've talked about it before. Anything in a movie theater or
Yeah.
drive-in setting, I love that. Um, I love the campiness and the motorcycle scene. Dude,
Yeah.
peak cinema for me, where the
Yeah.
dude is riding around on a motorcycle in a
With like
in
a
a movie
samurai
theater
sword or
with
something?
a samurai sword just hacking demon zombies up. Like, dude, that's what I want to see. The
Absolutely.
most entertaining thing like that I can watch.
But Demons 2 coming in at what?
Demons 2, big fall off for me. I mean it was really just like the beginning of the movie that I didn't like, I guess. It has the same amount of like campy goofiness. There's some cool set pieces. There's a scene in or a couple scenes in a parking garage that I thought were really fun that were also just kind of felt like Dawn of the Dead. It's just like all these demons like attacking them, and it's like
Hmm.
that dude that I was talking about, the pimp guy.
Yeah.
In Demons 2, you don't know anything about him other than he's working out in the gym. So it's like this group of people that were all sweaty like bodybuilders in the
Oh,
gym
see?
fighting off these demons like
Bodybuilders popping up everywhere in the past 2
yeah.
weeks.
So the scenes with him fighting, he kind of like takes charge and tells everybody else what to do to like barricade, very similar to the first one where he's like, everybody break all these chairs and like build these barricades,
And
almost
then like
exactly the same in
yeah,
Demons 2.
they went back to the well.
They did
Okay.
it feels
Oh,
very similar, and maybe that's why I kind of knock it a little bit. It's just like basically the same thing in a different setting. The way the demons get kicked off in the second one is kind of goofy too. It's like there's a similar thing going on where they're like watching this documentary, like how they're watching the movie, and it's like the mask is in the movie, but it's in real life too.
mm,
It's
yeah.
something kind of like that, and the way that the demons get kicked off in the second one is the dude literally just pops out of the TV.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Always a
S-
fun finish.
similar similar, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'd
Very
probably
good.
give Demons 2 like maybe 3, 3.5.
Okay. All right. Very good. I was more in the 3.5 range for Demons 1 even, but
Yeah,
so
I
Demons
mean
2
that's
might.
probably what it deserves, but you know me, I just like the
No,
goofy.
listen. Yeah, absolutely. Demons, I definitely think is a 4.5 star movie for you.
For me, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that is going to wrap us up. So we're not assigning each other homework this episode because we're going to try to do a 2024 year in review type episode. We are probably going to do a spotlight, but not do most of our normal segments as we look back at the movies from 2024 as I frantically try to see what I can to get this damn list done so we can go through our top 10 lists of 2024. And we're going to try to have it out, before or for the Oscars. So I guess that's, when movie people start our new calendar year. So this is supposed to wrap us up. And
Are there any big ones that you need to watch before you feel like you can finalize your list? Because I have two that I
mine
need to watch.
Mine is The Substance. I think it's the last one that I'm like, I definitely need to
Okay,
see this.
you need to see that for sure.
Yeah, Lindsay and I were planning on renting it one night this week. There's other stuff that I kind of wanted to see, but not critical. Love Lies Bleeding was on the list, and I mostly watched it last night, but not sure that shows up or not. But The Substance is the last one that I'm like, I have to, and I definitely will.
Yeah. I need to see Red Rooms because I've heard it's amazing. Like some
Okay, I
people have
haven't
said
seen
it's
that.
their movie of the year, and The Brutalist, and then I
Yeah.
guess one more. I do want to see the Bob Dylan movie. I haven't seen that
Okay,
yet.
yeah. I don't know that that's going to make my list, but I did like it, so it's in contention.
Okay.
Okay, so Keith, you want to break us down?
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Yeah. Do it for pizza and go, I guess.